Chapter 481. Armor with Spiritual Tattoos. It was a kind of unfathomable spiritual treasure. Only spiritual tattooists who had the attainment of spirit nurturing were qualified to explore and refine this treasure. Of course, this was merely the qualification. When it came to refining it, it would be even more difficult. Shen Tuo was an experienced spiritual tattooist and had the attainment of spirit nurturing. But until now, even he had not refined a complete set of armor with spiritual tattoos by himself. Therefore, he knew better than others how difficult it was to refine armor with spiritual tattoos. First of all, refining this treasure required a lot of rare spiritual materials. If measured by imperial gold coins, it would take at least 50 million gold coins to barely gather all the spiritual materials needed. This alone was enough to baffle most spiritual tattooists. After all, 50 million gold coins were enough to buy a large imperial battleship. It was an astronomical figure. Secondly, the refining of the armor with spiritual tattoos involved many ancient and obscure spiritual tattoo formations, which might lead to catastrophe. Even a slight mistake would cause all previous efforts to be in vain. Shen Tuo once worked hard with several masters of spiritual tattoos in the yard to refine a suit of armor with spiritual tattoos for several years. However, because of a slight mistake in the process of refining, all the spiritual materials were destroyed and they failed completely. The most terrible thing was that one of the spiritual tattooists even suffered a backfire when he failed because he had invested too much energy and effort. More than half of his cultivation was destroyed. This experience made Shen Tuo very clear that such a peerless treasure as the armor with spiritual tattoos could not be refined by anyone who wanted to. In today's empire, only the old monsters at the level of spiritual tattooist had the ability to successfully refine armor with spiritual tattoos. However, the number of such old monsters was extremely small, and they could be counted with one's fingers. The most famous spiritual tattooists were now in the Academy of Spiritual Implements of the Empire, the headquarters of the Commune of Spiritual Tattooists, the Yard of Spiritual Tattooists, and the three major families of spiritual tattoos. Therefore, when Shen Tuo was sure that Lin borrowed the 9th floor of the Spiritual Cultivation Tower to refine armor with spiritual tattoos, he was so shocked. "You are not kidding?" Shen Tuo took several deep breaths, barely suppressing his inner shock, and couldn't help but want to confirm further. "Yes." Lin nodded. Of course, he wouldn't joke. "How confident are you?" Shen Tuo's eyes were burning. If someone else said this, he would have treated him as a lunatic, but Lin Sun was different. Even though the young man before him was only 16 years old, he had caused the Roar of the 9 Dragons phenomenon back then, creating an unprecedented miracle. Moreover, the Sword of Apocalypse, the spiritual tattoo armor of the Empress, had long been seriously damaged, and there was almost no hope of recovery. But in the end, it was miraculously repaired by Lin Sun. With this knowledge, Shen Tuo began to believe that Lin Sun might have really decided to refine the armor with spiritual tattoos. Lin Sun shrugged. "I have a general idea, but I'm not sure how sure I am." Shen Tuo was startled. The excitement in his heart subsided by more than half, and his mind became much calmer. He had already realized that he had gotten excited a little too early. Lin Sun had no experience in refining armors with spiritual tattoos before, so it was impossible for him to know how difficult it was to achieve this step. He decided to refine the armor with spiritual tattoos this time. Perhaps it was just a trial. "What kind of armor with spiritual tattoos are you going to refine? Have you prepared all the spiritual materials?" Shen Tuo asked. "A spear," Lin Sun said without hesitation. He prepared it for Lin Zhong. In this world, there were not many people who could be completely trusted by him, but there was no doubt that Lin Zhong must be one of them. As for the spiritual materials, speaking of this, Lin Sun felt a little helpless. "What's wrong?" Shen Tuo asked. Lin Sun didn't hide it and said frankly, I still lack 7 or 8 kinds of spiritual materials, such as ancient star iron of 5 chi, cloud light sea soul silk, divine black gold and chalcedony. Shin Tuo was stunned and felt that he really got excited too early. These spiritual materials were not only rare but also hard to come by. For example, ancient star iron of 5 chi contained the essence of the 5 elements. A thumb-sized piece of it was worth tens of millions of gold coins. It was a treasure among the heaven-rank spiritual materials. Another example was divine black gold and chalcedony, which had long been extinct in the world. Today, almost all of the preserved ones were hidden in the imperial royal families and ancient aristocratic families. Its value was immeasurable. Boy, it's hard to do. Shin Tuo sighed. At this moment, he even suspected whether Lin Sun was joking. How could he refine the armor with spiritual tattoos without so many peerless spiritual materials? There was no way. That's why I came to see you. Lin Sun smiled. Me? Shin Tuo immediately smiled bitterly. Boy, you think too highly of me. I know some clues about the spiritual materials you lack, but it's too difficult to get them. As long as there are clues, I can exchange these spiritual materials for them. Lin Sun's eyes lit up and he waved his sleeves. Suddenly, a piece of silver light as bright as stars appeared on the ground, gorgeous and dazzling. At first, Shin Tuo didn't believe it and thought Lin Sun was joking. Those spiritual materials were peerless. What could he exchange for them? However, when he saw the dazzling glow of the treasure, he was instantly stunned on the spot. The silver luster was like stars all over the sky, swaying and like a miniature waterfall rushing and sweeping. The scene was more than spectacular, it could be called spiritual and divine. It was so beautiful. Shin Tuo's mind was instantly shocked. He'd already discerned that those were numerous silver-colored spirit herbs. Their stems were straight and sharp like swords and halberds, and their entire bodies were bright silver like stars. As they stood towering there, they were like numerous peerless divine swords that seemed capable of piercing through the sky. What moved Shin Tuo most was that around the silver spiritual materials there was a pure and vigorous spiritual qi, which was ethereal, fragrant and cold, as if it was about to penetrate into the depths of the soul. The leaves are like swords, the spirit is like stars, and the light is like a dream, like a flash of lightning in his mind. Shin Tuo suddenly remembered something. He was stiff all over and cried out involuntarily, "Is this the silver frost sword grass?" Lin Sun was surprised. He didn't expect that Shin Tuo could recognize it at once. He nodded and said, "Yes. These silver frost sword grass were all obtained from the ancient relics in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea. When he first arrived at the Forbidden City, he gave Keystone Business 6 or 7 kinds of spiritual herbs, including 9 twists red core iron, spirit flower of purity and nihility, green evil dragon sleeping wood, white meteorite iron, and red shadow grass with tear stains, because he was in urgent need of money. Now, in addition to hundreds of silver frost sword grass, there were 7 or 8 kinds of treasures, such as true yang dragon marrow fruit and purple spirit iron, which had been extinct for a long time and were invaluable. It's really this ancient medicine. It still exists in the world. Shin Tuo looked excited with a trace of fanaticism. Even in ancient times, this treasure was called a rare treasure. It could be regarded as a first-class medicine in the world. It could bring the dead back to life. Even the great practitioners of reincarnation developing realm would fight for it. Even the kings of life and death realm would be jealous of it. Lin Sun was surprised again. What Shin Tuo said was exactly the same as what Green Turtle King had said before. They both pointed out the magic of the silver frost swordgrass. This treasure has long been annihilated in the world. I thought it was just a legend. I never thought I could see it today. It's incredible! Shin Tuo exclaimed again and again. It could be seen that the appearance of the silver frost sword grass had a great impact on his heart. Lin Sun just wanted to say something, but Shin Tuo screamed again. God 10? Isn't it said that once you touch it, you will die and burn it? As long as you touch it, you will immediately disappear? Standing on one side, Lin Sun looked at the solemn and dignified senior spiritual tattooist in the past, but now he kept shouting as if he had never seen the world. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. This was the temptation of spiritual materials. No practitioner could resist it, no matter who it was. After a long time, Shin Tua calmed down a little. He looked at Lin Sun with a complicated look and said, "It seems that you have been ready for a long time." Lin Sun cupped his hands seriously. "Thank you for your help. Are you really going to exchange these silver frost sword grass for spiritual materials?" Shin Tua asked. Lin Sun nodded. "Well, leave it to me. I believe that with these silver frost sword grass, no one will refuse to exchange spiritual materials for it." Shin Tua agreed readily. "I remember that some old guys in our Green Deer School have some spiritual materials you need. Well, the Academy of Spiritual Implements of the Empire should also have some." It was obvious that he was already thinking about who he should exchange these 10 silver frost sword grasses for. Lin Sun said on one side, "Senior, one of these silver frost sword grass is for you. Don't exchange it out." Shin Tua was shocked and immediately understood that Lin Sun was repaying him. He couldn't help patting Lin Sun's shoulder with emotion. "You still don't understand the value of silver frost sword grass. I only need to release a bit of news to attract all kinds of immortals to come and beg me to give them a chance to exchange for silver frost sword grass." He continued with a smile, "In this way, I can also do them a favor. There are many benefits." Lin Sun was stunned and immediately sighed with admiration. Sure enough, the older, the wiser. By the way, Shin Tua suddenly thought of something and said with a frown, "There is a type of spiritual material that cannot be exchanged. As far as I know, in the current empire, only our Green Deer Academy's Langya treasury has a piece." "What?" Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. Shin Tua said, "The horn of Kuei ox." Lin Sun was shocked. This was the core material for him to refine the armor with spiritual tattoos. Without it, everything would be nonsense. "How can I get it if I can't exchange for it?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. Shin Tua said casually, "The method is very simple, but it's too difficult. There are many conditions and restrictions. First of all, you must have 5,000 points, and then you are qualified to go to the martial school to take the most rigorous Celestial Ladder assessment. Only by passing the Celestial Ladder assessment can you go to the Langya treasury to exchange for this treasure." Chapter 482. 5,000 points. This condition alone gave Lin Sun a headache. The value of the points in Green Deer School was extremely high. Lin Sun earned a total of 1,000 points after teaching for a month. Among them, the points he got after repairing the Sword of Apocalypse for the Empress were also included. It was conceivable how difficult it was to get 5,000 points in a short time. In addition, there was the Celestial Ladder test. Although Lin Sun didn't know what the Celestial Ladder test meant, he knew how terrible it was when he knew that only those who had 5,000 points were qualified to take part in it. The horn of the one-legged ox can no longer be described as a spiritual material, but a magic material. It was born in ancient times and has long been extinct. It is said that the Dean got it in a secret realm by chance when he traveled in the Soul Oblivion Sea. Shen Tua said slowly, "Because this treasure is very special, the Dean ordered that only those who pass the Celestial Ladder test can have it." "What is the Celestial Ladder test?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "It's a kind of test for cultivators." Shen Tua said, "I don't know the details. It is said that every disciple of martial arts school will take part in the test. But only a few people have succeeded in thousands of years. In short, only the most talented and peerless top figures have the ability to take part in the Celestial Ladder test. Even if others go, they are doomed to fail. I remember that only 2 people have passed the Celestial Ladder test in recent hundreds of years. One is Qin Zihan, and the other is Che Qingyu. Both of them are outstanding in the world. It is said that Che Qingyu has gone to the mysterious Holy Land of extraterritorial area for cultivation, and Qin Zihen is now practicing in martial arts school. It is said that he will also set off for a mysterious orthodoxy in the extraterritorial area before long. After talking for a long time, Shin Tua left with 10 silver star swordgrass. He needed to exchange the spiritual materials for Lin Sun. He had promised Lin Sun that he would not disclose the fact that Lin Sun was going to refine the armor with spiritual tattoos before he got all the spiritual materials, so as to avoid any accident. Lin Sun thought for a long time and finally sighed softly. The horn of the one-legged ox couldn't be replaced. If he couldn't collect it, he couldn't refine the armor with spiritual tattoos he had conceived before. It seems that I have to hurry to earn point. A touch of firmness flashed through Lin Sun's black eyes. Before leaving, Shen Tua told Lin many ways to earn points, such as giving lectures, going out for training, taking tests. Anyone who could make contributions to the school would be rewarded with corresponding point. After thinking for a while, Lin decided to go to the Hall of Spiritual Affairs. The Spiritual Affairs Hall's job was to issue various assignments and coordinate the various miscellaneous affairs of the Academy. Simply speaking, it was a place to manage miscellaneous affairs. Instructor Kobayashi, you are back. That's great. We've been waiting for you for a long time. When Lin Sun walked out of the teacher's dormitory, he saw a group of young boys and girls already crowded there. When they saw Lin Sun, they all cheered with excitement and joy. Lin Sun was stunned and soon recognized that most of them were students of Class 9, such as Little Fatty Lu Hui, Fan Jiqiu, Yang Jingyao and so on. Instructor Kobayashi, you won't be leaving this time, right? Teacher Little Lin, I heard that you have offended the imperial family of the empire. Many people want to harm you, but Teacher Shen Tua said that as long as you are in Green Deer Academy, no one would dare to harm you. Instructor Kobayashi, when are you going to continue your lessons? We're all looking forward to your return. Those students chattered nonstop. Although it was noisy, hearing their heartfelt words of concern still warmed Lin Sun's heart. At this moment, he even thought that if it weren't for the fact that he had so many things to do, it would be good to be a teacher who stood aloof from worldly affairs for the rest of his life. Hurry up and go to class. Don't you see that Instructor Kobayashi still has a lot of things to do? Little Fatty Lu Hui shouted loudly. Lin Sun suddenly became speechless and said, You all go back to class first. I definitely won't leave the academy during this period of time. Just as he said this, a sharp voice like a broken gong sounded in the distance. Lin Sun? Where is Lin Sun? Come out quickly. Damn it, who's so rude? Little Fatty Lu Hui was instantly annoyed. Looking up, he saw a large group of figures coming from afar aggressively. They were a group of men and women wearing light cyan uniforms with a picture of a green deer riding on clouds embroidered on their shoulders. This was the symbol of Martial Arts Academy. Hey, why are they here? Little Fatty Lu Hui was a little surprised. The other people present also changed their expressions. They recognized that it was a group of students from Martial Arts Academy. In Green Deer Academy, Hidden Dragon Academy took in the most students. It was a gathering place for new students. This could be seen from the two words, Hidden Dragon. On the other hand, the Martial Dao Courtyard was different. Those that were able to enter the Martial Dao Courtyard to cultivate were all elite figures that had been carefully selected. They were top figures in the Spirit Ocean realm, and there was no lack of geniuses and geniuses within the Martial Dao Courtyard. For example, the top 100 students on Sea Spirit Golden List were now cultivating in Martial Arts Academy. As for Zhen Wu Academy, it was a place for Tao Insight Realm powerhouses to cultivate. It was more transcendent and mysterious. Usually it was rare to see them. Spiritual Tattoo Academy and Strategy Academy were places for spiritual tattooists and tacticians to cultivate. This also determined that even if they all cultivated in Green Deer Academy, the students of Spiritual Tattoo Academy and Martial Arts Academy would rarely interact with each other because of their different cultivation paths. But today was very special. A group of elites from Martial Arts Academy came to Spiritual Tattoo Academy aggressively and threatened to find Lin soon. It was obvious that they were here to make trouble. Even if little fatty Lu Hui and the others were slow, they had heard that many people in the academy now threatened to teach Lin soon a lesson to wash away the shame of the Empress and the royal family. Over there. Soon, the broken gong-like voice sounded again. It was a young man with narrow cheeks, small eyes, and a black mole at the corner of his mouth. He was called Li Xiaofei, and he could be considered to be a famous person in the martial Dao courtyard. It wasn't because his cultivation was formidable, but because the mole at the corner of his mouth was too unique and extremely striking, so he had a resounding nickname, A Mole. Along with the voice, the eyes of the students of Martial Arts Academy all looked over. Almost at once, they locked their eyes on Lin Sun. You must be Lin Sun. You finally showed up. We've been waiting for you for a long time. Li Xiaofei took 2 steps forward, raised his chin, looked at Lin Sun arrogantly, and sneered. The black mole at the corner of his mouth was even more eye-catching. Judging from his tone, they must be here to make trouble, which made little fatty Lu Hui and the other students of Spiritual Tattoo Academy frown. What do you want? This is Spiritual Tattoo Academy, not a place where students of Martial Arts Academy can behave atrociously. Lu Hui shouted. Little fatty, what are you talking about? Get out of the way. It's none of your business. You'd better not talk too much, or you'll get into trouble. Li Xiaofei squinted at Lu Hui disdainfully, then looked at Lin Sun and said, Lin Sun, you know why we're here. Be sensible and come with us quickly. His overbearing words made Lu Hui and the others furious. This guy was too arrogant. Lin Sun was an instructor. How could a student scold and order him? One Mole, don't be so arrogant. If you dare to make trouble again, we'll report to the school leaders and punish you severely. Yang Jingyao shouted. She looked gentle and delicate, but now she looked very shrewish, staring at Li Xiaofei fiercely with her almond-shaped eyes. Obviously, she knew Li Xiaofei's background, so she called him by his nickname confidently. It's the 9th Miss of Yang family. Sure enough, Li Xiaofei's expression froze. He recognized Yang Jingyao's origin and immediately felt embarrassed and fearful. This surprised Lin Sun. He didn't see that Yang Jingyao's origin seemed to be so great. But it made sense. This was the first school of the empire, and no one who could cultivate here was simple. Yang Xiaojiu, you'd better stay aside. We're not here to make trouble, but for Lin Sun. Suddenly, a woman from Martial Arts Academy spoke. She had starry eyes, red lips, and a delicate face. Her black hair fell down like a waterfall, revealing a snow-white goose neck. She was extremely beautiful. However, her expression was too cold, and her eyebrows were full of arrogance, like a mountain of ice and snow. She seemed to be undisturbed by strangers. Shuiyun, are you also here to make trouble for Instructor Lin? Yang Jingyao frowned, seeming to be a little afraid of this beautiful woman named Shuiyun. Shuiyun. On the other hand, when the others heard this name, their bodies instantly trembled as they recalled that this young woman was shockingly a genius of the martial Dao courtyard. She came from an aristocratic family with a respected status and outstanding talent. Now she was ranked 19th on Spirit Sea Golden List, which was extremely prominent. The scene seemed to be silent for a while. Shuiyun glanced at Yang Jingyao coldly and ignored her. She looked at Lin Sun and said, Come with us. Since you've shown up, you should pay for some mistakes you've made. From the beginning until the end, he had a cold and aloof appearance, and his words didn't have any overbearing intent, yet they were filled with a feeling of supremacy. Lin Sun didn't speak. He had vaguely guessed what they were going to do, but he still felt strange and asked, What mistakes? Hey, Lin Sun, do you still want to deny it? Now everyone knows that you are arrogant and rude. You forced Marquis Lingtian to kneel down and desecrated the dignity of the imperial family. You have committed a heinous crime. Li Xiaofei sneered and scolded Lin Sun. Lin Sun immediately laughed. What does it have to do with you if I offend the imperial family? Are you also a member of the imperial family? Look at you, with a protruding mouth and sneaky eyes. If you are a member of the imperial family, God must be blind to make you look like this. Fatty Lu Hui and others couldn't help laughing. They felt that Lin Sun's description of a mole was too appropriate. Instructor Lin, is it a little impolite to call others ugly? Yang Jingyao asked in a low voice. Humph, it's this guy who provoked first. Instructor Lin is just telling the truth. How can it be impolite? Fatty Lu Hui retorted. The others all agreed. This mole was too arrogant, so it looked extraordinarily ugly. How dare you? Chapter 483. Lin Sun didn't get angry at Li Xiaofei's scolding. He just smiled and said, Young man, if you're ugly, you should cultivate more. Otherwise, you'll be looked down upon and won't be able to find a wife in the future. That'll be very sad. Some girls couldn't help but laugh out loud. Li Xiaofei was so angry that his lips trembled. He was able to enter Green Deer School and enter the martial courtyard. It was a powerful performance in itself, but in Lin Sun's words, he was ridiculed to such an extent. It was too infuriating. I want to duel with you, Li Xiaofei yelled, his eyes wide open. That's enough. You can leave first. Shuiyan frowned. She felt that Li Xiaofei was losing his cool. Li Xiaofei's expression was gloomy. In the end, he glared at Lin Sun and didn't say anything else. Lin Sun, what do you think? Shuiyan's eyes were cold. Her face was exquisite and beautiful, and her temperament was as cold as ice. She was born with a noble aura, but she seemed a little too arrogant. The people who came with Shuiyun also looked at Lin Sun. You're also a member of the royal family? Lin Sun asked with a smile. Shuiyun immediately frowned and a trace of impatience flashed in her eyes. Lin Sun, you dared to force Marquis Lingtian to kneel. Why are you so timid now? Could it be that you're afraid to? A young man walked up and said disdainfully. His name was Shi Yunpeng, an expert in the martial courtyard and an outstanding talent of the younger generation. When you can force Marquis Lingtian to kneel, then you can ask me if I'm afraid or not. Lin Sun glanced at Shi Yunpeng, implying that he wasn't qualified to say such words to him. Shi Yunpeng was infuriated as well. Lin Sun was too arrogant and actually dared to look down on him. After all, Shi Yunpeng could be considered as an influential figure in the martial Dao courtyard. When had he ever been ridiculed like this? Lin Sun, I forgot to tell you. Lin Xiefeng is your cousin, right? He's now a street rat in the Hidden Dragon Institute. At this moment, another young man walked up with a smile and said leisurely, Oh, right. Just a few days ago, he wanted to challenge me. You know the result. He's too weak. I accidentally injured him, and he seems to be recuperating now. Lin Xiefeng. Lin Sun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he finally had some different reactions. Lin Xiefeng was the heir of Northlight Lin and the first elder brother who surrendered to Lin Sun. But Lin Sun didn't expect that because of him, Lin Xiefeng was also affected and bullied in Green Deer School. Undoubtedly, this had touched Lin Sun's bottom line. What's your name? Lin Sun looked at the young man with indifferent eyes. Jin Zhulu. The young man was still smiling, and the space between his brows was filled with arrogance. Instantly, Lu Hui, Yang Jingyao, and the others nearby became restless and revealed surprised and bewildered expressions. It's actually him. Jin Zhulu was an extraordinary genius that was ranked 9th on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings. His name shook the entire martial Dao courtyard, and he was extremely dazzling. He had many glorious achievements that caused people to take delight in talking about him. It could be said that Jin Zhulu was even more famous than Shuiyun and Shi Yunpeng. Lin Sun, let me ask you again. Have you made up your mind? Shui Yun took a deep breath and said coldly. Her patience was almost worn out. At this moment, Lin Sun's eyes swept over Shui Yun, Shi Yunping, Jin Zhulu, Li Xiaofei, and others one by one. Finally, he smiled brightly and said, It seems that if I don't agree today, you will definitely not let it go. No one spoke, which was a tacit agreement. In that case, I'm curious about how you want to avenge Marquis Lingtian. Lin Sun asked. It's not to avenge Marquis Lingtian, but to wash away the shame of the imperial family and let you atone for your crimes. Shi Yunping said coldly. Fight. Lin Sun said. Yes. Shi Yunping nodded. Okay. To everyone's surprise, Lin Sun actually agreed readily, and this caused Shui Yun and the others to be slightly surprised. Fatty Lu Hui, Yang Jingyao, and the others all showed a touch of worry and tried to dissuade him. Coach Lin, don't be angry with them. They must have already thought of a way to deal with you since they dare to say so. Yes, as long as you stay in Spiritual Tattoo Yard, no one dares to do anything to you. These students were all well-intentioned, but Lin Sun shook his head and motioned them not to say more. Let's go. Lin Sun glanced at Shui Yun and walked away with his hands behind his back. Although this guy is a little wordy, he is quite courageous. Li Xiaofei murmured. Humph, isn't it better? Go and inform Brother Zhao Jingwen and Zhuo Yujing that Lin Sun has been forced out by us. Shi Yunping ordered in a cold voice. Shui Yun and others all followed Lin Sun to leave, as if they were escorting prisoners. Let's go too. If they dare to embarrass Coach Lin, we will never agree. The little fatty roared with righteous indignation. Yes, let's go together. Immediately, the students of Class 9 set out together. Martial Arts Yard. Ancient buildings stood in great numbers, towering and solemn. What? Lin Sun dares to come? Let's go and have a look. Hee, this is going to be interesting. This day was destined to be turbulent, especially in Martial Arts Yard. When they learned that Lin Sun had come, it immediately caused a great sensation. When Lin Sun just walked into Martial Arts Yard, he was stopped by a group of people. You are Lin Sun? Why aren't you a coward? Those people sneered. Lin Sun ignored them and walked forward. He felt very strange in his heart. He offended the royal family of the empire. What did it have to do with these students? Could it be that someone was secretly instigating them to humiliate him with the power of these students? Humph, how dare you be so arrogant at such a time? Let me tell you, if you dare to step into Martial Arts Yard today, you must atone for your crimes. Those people were annoyed. Lin Sun still ignored them and walked forward under the lead of Shui Yun and others. However, on the way, more and more figures appeared. They were all students of Martial Arts Yard. There were men and women, and each of them was extraordinary. They were the top figures in Sea Spirit Realm. However, their attitude towards Lin Sun was quite bad. Along the way, they pointed at Lin Sun, and there was no lack of sarcasm and humiliation. This made Lin Sun more and more certain that there must be someone behind this deliberately targeting him. Who could it be? Zhuo family, Qin family? Or the royal family of the empire? Lin Sun, I'm talking to you, do you hear me? On the way, a white-haired young man shouted. His eyes were fierce and full of wildness. Lin Sun had been ignoring him, which made him sullen. Lin Sun glanced at Shui Yun and said, Who is this white-haired boy? He's so naggy. Is he prematurely aging? His mouth is also trembling? The scene immediately became silent. Everyone was stunned, including Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu, and Shi Yunping. They were all speechless. After a while, someone in the distance couldn't help laughing. Did I hear it wrong? This guy actually dared to call on you white hair and said he is prematurely aging? Haha. Everyone nearby looked strange, but they didn't dare to laugh. Lan Yu was a fierce man ranked 5th in Sea Spirit Gold list. Lan Yu's ancestors were related to the royal family by marriage, so he could be regarded as half a member of the royal family. With outstanding aptitude and fierce temperament, few people in martial school dared to offend him. On the one hand, it was because of his special identity. On the other hand, it was because Lan Yu's strength was really abnormal. In martial school where geniuses gathered, Lan Yu could be regarded as a top existence. White hair. Lan Yu was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. Who in the world dared to call him that? At the same time, the most hateful thing was the irony of prematurely aging. It was so vicious. He was a talent in his prime with a promising future, but someone dared to humiliate him like this. This was courting death. Lin Sun, it seems that you are really tired of living. Lan Yu's face was gloomy, and he gnashed his teeth. White hair, if you take good care of your body, you may live longer. You are so young, but you are prematurely aging. Alas, what a pity. Lin Sun sighed and shook his head. Lan Yu was really angry. He was really angry. Lin Sun's pitiful sigh, coupled with his extremely vicious words, almost made Lan Yu unable to bear it. It was so hateful. Do you want to die? Lan Yu's killing intent suddenly appeared. Lin Sun glanced at him, still looking pitiful. Child Lan Yu, don't care about him. There will be plenty of opportunities to deal with him when we go to martial arts practice field. Beside him, Li Xiaofei showed a flattering expression. Humph! Lan Yu stared at Lin Sun with cold eyes. Do you dare to fight with me in martial arts practice field? Martial arts practice field? Lin Sun realized that those who wanted to make trouble for him today must be dealt with in the so-called martial arts practice field. Sure, but you have to wait. Lin Sun smiled. Do I have to wait? Are you afraid? Lan Yu was disdainful. You misunderstood. I mean, there are many people who want to fight with me. You have to wait in line. After I deal with them, I can play with you. Lin Sun's light words made Lan Yu tremble with anger. This guy was so arrogant that he dared to look down on him like this. Even Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu, and Shi Yunpeng looked a little gloomy. Lin Sun's words obviously meant that he could defeat all of them at any time. Of course. Suddenly, Lin Sun said, not everyone is qualified to challenge me. If you want to fight with me, you have to at least come up with some stakes. Stakes? Many people present were stunned. This guy not only didn't lower his head after coming to martial arts practice field, but also wanted to bet? This was too arrogant. Lan Yu was also stunned. After a long time, he said, What do you want to bet? Lin Sun smiled slightly. School points. Whoever wants to challenge me, take out all the points you have. The minimum should be no less than 1,000. 1,000 points? Good luck? Everyone was speechless. What did this guy think of points? 1,000 points. That was much more valuable than 10 million gold coins. Why don't you go to hell? Chapter 484. Why are you so impulsive? I thought you had a lot of points, but it turns out that you are just a pauper. A trace of contempt appeared in Lin Sun's eyes. Lan Yu was so angry that he wanted to slap Lin Sun to death. He gritted his teeth and said, Do you know what 1,000 points mean? How dare you ask for such an exorbitant price? Lin Sun said, You should have at least 800 points, right? Blue veins stood out on Lan Yu's forehead. What did this guy think the school points were? Cabbages? 500 points? Lin Sun's eyes became more and more contemptuous. If you don't even have these points, you'd better work hard to earn points first. Lan Yu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He wanted to teach Lin Sun a lesson, but in the end, he held back, took a deep breath, and said with a livid face, Okay, 500 points, I promise you. Lin Sun immediately smiled and patted him on the shoulder, saying, Good, good, you can line up to challenge me. Seeing Lin Sun's confident look, Lan Yu's face turned green with anger. He almost couldn't restrain himself. Oh, by the way, if you want to challenge me, remember to prepare your points. I won't embarrass you. When you lose, just give me all your points. Lin Sun glanced at Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu, Shi Yunpeng and others, which made their faces gloomy all of a sudden. Arrogant. Too arrogant. The other students present also widened their eyes. Lin Sun was so unscrupulous. Wasn't he afraid of retribution? You can also inform others that if you want to fight with me, you can. Come and line up with your points. Lin Sun's words made all the nearby students of martial arts courtyard angry. What did this guy think they were? Lambs waiting to be slaughtered? Lin Sun, don't be complacent. You will suffer later. I'm so angry. This guy is so hateful. Senior brothers and sisters, don't be polite to him. Lin Sun, you are so arrogant. Do you really think our martial arts courtyard is a decoration? There was a burst of shouting, accusing and scolding Lin Sun. The scene was extremely lively. This was martial arts courtyard. The noise here soon attracted a lot of onlookers. Many students even quickly went to inform others and invited them to come. I've informed senior brother Yu Ruhua. If he knows that Lin Sun is so arrogant, he will definitely take action. Hey, I've told some disciples of aristocratic families in the school who have enmity with Lin, such as Hua family, Song family, Qi family and so on. The onlookers didn't mind making things bigger. This time, Lin Sun's arrival was destined to stir up a storm. Lin Sun ignored these words and asked Li Xiaofei, "Ugly, where is the martial arts arena?" Li Xiaofei was furious. "Who are you calling ugly?" Lin Sun said, "A mole, where is the martial arts arena?" Li Xiaofei was so angry that he wanted to tear Lin's mouth. "It's right in front." At this moment, Shui Yun spoke coldly. Lin Sun looked up and saw a large field not far away. There was an ancient stone platform in the field. It was dark and stained with blood, with obscure spiritual tattoos faintly flowing on it. This was the martial practice grounds, and it was a place where the disciples of the martial Dao courtyard fought for supremacy. For the past few thousands of years, there had been countless geniuses and influential figures that fought for supremacy there, and unparalleled battles were played out one after another. At this time, many figures had already gathered around the martial arts arena. Obviously, they heard that Lin Sun was coming and was about to fight here. Moreover, many students were coming from other places one after another. "Come on, Lin Sun, let me teach you a lesson today. I'll wash away the shame of the imperial family and let you know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is." Lan Yu shouted. Originally, he wouldn't be the first to jump out, but he was so angry with Lin Sun on the way that he couldn't help it. "White hair, didn't I tell you to line up? Wash your neck first and wait aside." Lin Sun waved his hand unhappily. When the surrounding people heard this, they all wanted to laugh yet didn't dare, and they had strange expressions on their faces. "White hair." Lin Sun dared to call Lan Yu like this. "Lin Sun, wait and see." Lan Yu's face was extremely ugly. Lin Sun didn't bother to pay attention to him. He walked into the martial arts arena and stood on the stone platform. Then he looked at Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu and Shi Yunping and said, "You called me here. Now, who's going to fight first?" "I'll go first." Shi Yunping strode out with a murderous look. "Wait." Lin Sun frowned. "Don't you know the rules?" Shi Yunping was stunned and shouted, "What tricks do you want to play at this time?" Lin Sun said unhappily, "Give me your identity nameplate first. I'm afraid you won't get any points if you lose." Shi Yunping was so angry that he took out his student nameplate with a gloomy face and threw it to the side of the martial arts arena. Seeing this, Lin Sun nodded, "Come on." With a swish, Shi Yunping jumped onto the stone platform and shouted without hesitation, "Lin Sun, go to hell." With a bang, the power around him suddenly changed. Wind and thunder surged and clouds rose. He slapped forward fiercely. Red clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. He used all his strength and used a unique martial art at the beginning. His palm moved like thunder and wind, extremely frightening. Small wind and thunder skill. Many people's eyes lit up. This was an ancient secret skill of Shi family. Shi Yunping himself was not simple either. He was a first-class figure in martial arts courtyard. He had reached the fulfillment of Sea Spirit realm, and was ranked in the top 50 of Sea Spirit Golden List. At this moment, many people couldn't help but be excited when they saw Shi Yunpeng's thunderous strike. Boom! Lin Sun punched out and broke the attack, saying, "That's all? It's not enough." Many people were speechless. This guy's mouth was really unforgiving. "Give me your life!" Shi Yunpeng roared and fought with Lin Sun. He ran small wind and thunder skill to the extreme. Red clouds rolled and thunder roared, extremely overbearing and fierce. "You're so loud. I thought you were powerful, but you're only SOSO. Young man, you can't be so boastful." Lin Sun didn't stop talking as he fought. "Kill!" Shi Yunpeng's eyes were red. Spiritual light surged around him and shot into the sky. A terrifying thunder and lightning aura shot out in all directions. This battle was very exciting. The two fought on the stone platform, each displaying their power. The wind and clouds surged and the rays of light roared. It was very dazzling. Outside the stage, many people couldn't help but nod and cheer for Shi Yunpeng. Some people were very disdainful of Lin Sun. They thought that the rumors were exaggerated and that Lin Sun was only SOSO. They even started to doubt how a peerless expert like Marquis Lingtianhao could lose to Lin Sun. It was too disappointing. No matter what, this Lin Sun is not bad. He is much stronger than the new students of Hidden Dragon Institute. However, in our martial arts courtyard, he is clearly not good enough. Jin Zhulu said slowly. Indeed, he doesn't live up to his name. Shui Yun said indifferently. Others also thought so. Originally, they were all prepared and didn't underestimate Lin Sun. But when they saw that he couldn't even defeat Shi Yunpeng, they couldn't help but feel relaxed. They thought that the rumors outside were too exaggerated and Lin Sun was not so powerful. There were also a small number of people in the field with strange expressions and quite complicated feelings. They found the abnormality at the first time. How could Lin Sun, such a ferocious man, fight like this? This small number of people had attended the birthday banquet of the Emperor and Queen. They had seen how Lin Sun suppressed Qi Tsongfeng and defeated Marquis Lingtianhao. Qi Tsongmei was also in the field. She had a deeper understanding of Lin Sun and knew how terrible he was. She could even see at a glance that Lin Sun deliberately held back his strength. Obviously, he was worried that his performance would be too eye-catching and scare away others. Then he would lose some good luck. This guy is really a jerk. He has a belly full of bad ideas to cheat others. Qi Tsongmei sighed in her heart, but she didn't expose it. Her younger brother Qi Tsongfeng was defeated by Lin Sun, and he was still laughed at and looked down upon by many people. Under such circumstances, she hoped that more people would jump into the pit dug by Lin Sun and taste the feeling of being suppressed by Lin Sun. On the other side, Hua Wuyo stood in the field with a cold look. She also hated Lin Sun because she was almost killed by Lin Sun if she hadn't been rescued in time by the masters of her clan. At this time, seeing that Lin Sun was forced to come to the duel, she naturally hoped that someone could teach Lin Sun a hard lesson. It was better to destroy him. However, she obviously saw that Lin Sun's performance today was too strange. If he was so weak, how could he defeat Hua Wuyo? This guy absolutely did it on purpose. Wuyo, is he the one who defeated you? I don't think he is so powerful. A pretty girl next to her giggled. Hua Wuyo was a little angry in her heart, but she said calmly, Princess Xianxian, you and Marquis Lingtian are both members of the royal family. Why don't you take this opportunity to suppress Lin Sun and avenge Marquis Lingtian? The pretty girl called Princess Xianxian was stunned, and then she said proudly, he is too weak to be worthy of my help. Hua Wuyo said no more, but she sneered in her heart. Even Marquis Lingtian was forced to kneel down by Lin Sun. How could he be called weak? How ignorant he was. In the martial arts field, the battle was extremely fierce. When Lin Sun and Shi Yunpeng fought for 500 rounds, Shi Yunpeng finally lost and was slapped away by Lin Sun. He coughed up blood and fell to the ground outside the stone platform. There was an uproar in the field. The battle was so fierce at this time, but they didn't see clearly how Shi Yunping was defeated at the last moment. Young man, go back and practice for a few more years. You and I are not at the same level at all. If I didn't show mercy, I would have suppressed you long ago. Lin Sun stood there, sweating on his forehead and panting slightly. But his words were extremely high-key, showing that he looked down on Shi Yunping. Hush! There was a burst of hissing in the field. They had fought for 500 rounds, and the battle was so fierce. It was not easy for Lin Sun to defeat Shi Yunping. Chapter 485. Hearing Lin Sun's words, Shi Yunping was so angry that the blue veins on his forehead bulged. He was defeated by this shameless guy in public, which made him feel aggrieved and ashamed. Let's fight again if you have the guts, Shi Yunping roared. He was unwilling to give up. In the previous duel with Lin Sun, he fought fiercely for 500 rounds. He thought he could win, but in the end, he was inexplicably slapped out of the arena. He was still in a daze and didn't understand the situation. At this time, Lin Sun had taken the nameplate left by Shi Yunping. He glanced at it and found that there were only more than 300 points. Your points are not enough. If you want to fight with me again, get at least another 500 points. Otherwise, I won't be in the mood to guide you, Lin Sun said unhappily. Shi Yunping trembled with anger and gritted his teeth. Lin Sun was so irritating. Many people in the arena booed and booed. They thought it was contemptible for Lin Sun to be so arrogant after he finally won. You don't accept it? Okay, take your points and line up. I promise to accompany you to the end. Lin Sun smiled brightly. Lin Sun, don't be so arrogant. Those students were furious and scolded Lin Sun. A real man doesn't talk nonsense. If you have the guts, come at me. Those who only know how to talk nonsense, get out of the way. Lin Sun's face was calm, which made many people's noses almost crooked with anger. I'll fight you! Lan Yu shouted like thunder. He couldn't stand it anymore. White hair, line up obediently. It's not your turn yet. Lin Sun squinted at him with a disdainful look. White hair again. Lan Yu's eyes were red with anger. He was a dazzling talent ranked in the top 5 on the Sea Spirit Gold list. His ancestors were related to the imperial royal family by marriage. He was respected wherever he went. When had he ever been humiliated by others as Whitehair? I'll make you die a horrible death later. Lan Yu said one word at a time, showing his killing intent. Lin Sun rolled his eyes and didn't want to look at him again. His arrogant attitude made those students in Martial Courtyard almost unable to bear it. This was Martial Courtyard. Who dared to be so impudent here? But today, Lin Sun, who was insufferably arrogant and condescending, had come. He was extremely hateful. Lin Sun didn't care about this. On the first day after he came out, a group of people blocked the gate of Heart Cleansing Peak. All kinds of demons and ghosts came out to make trouble. After dealing with these demons and ghosts, he arrived at Green Deer Academy. He thought that he could focus on his weapon forging plan, but who would have thought that he would be harassed and provoked by the students of the Martial Dao Courtyard? And Lin Sun could roughly conclude that there must be someone instigating and supporting all this. Even if he bowed his head and bore it silently, it was impossible for him to avoid the storm. This made Lin really angry. If he didn't make a big fuss, there would only be more clowns in the future. I'll fight you! Shui Yun stepped forward with a cold and indifferent expression, like a proud and aloof snowy mountain. Everyone was surprised. They didn't expect that Shui Yun couldn't stand Lin Sun's arrogance. Immediately, they became excited. Shui Yun. She was a famous genius in the Martial Dao Courtyard. She was ranked 19th on the Spirit Sea Golden ranking. Moreover, she came from an aristocratic family. Her appearance was exquisite and beautiful. She was extremely popular in the academy and was admired by many young disciples. Seeing that she chose to fight second, the crowd was boiling. Senior Sister Shuiyun, you must teach this boy a hard lesson. Let him know the power of our martial Dao courtyard. Some male students roared to cheer for Shuiyun. Only a small group of people who knew Lin Sun, such as Qi Tsangmei and Hua Wuyo, looked strange. Another girl jumped into the pit, and it was a dazzling girl. Princess Xianxian, have you ever heard that a phoenix without feathers is inferior to a chicken? Hua Wuyo suddenly asked. What did you say? The pretty girl next to her was stunned. Nothing. Hua Wuyo didn't want to explain more. In her mind, Shuiyun was about to become a phoenix without feathers. Wait a minute, have you brought your points? I won't relax my requirements for the challenger just because a woman challenges me. In the arena, Lin Sun looked at Shuiyun with a smile. Some people were dumbfounded. How dare this guy be so disrespectful to senior sister Shuiyun? Didn't he know how to be tender to the fairer sex? This kind of person's eyes are fixed on point. Sisters, don't look for such a man in the future. A female student shouted angrily, which aroused a lot of echoes. Don't be arrogant. Shuiyun's eyes were cold. She threw out her identity nameplate. Then, her figure flashed and her clothes fluttered in the wind. She came to the arena and said indifferently, Lin Sun, if you lose, you should atone for your mistakes and apologize to the royal family. Lin Sun said with a smile, defeat me first. Boom. Shuiyun didn't say anything more. In an instant, thousands of bright purple clouds shot out from her body, which turned into rainbow blades and shrouded Lin Sun. Interesting. Lin Sun went up to her. The battle broke out, which was more wonderful than the fierce battle with Shi Yunping just now. Waves of cheers came from the arena. Of course, they were all cheering for Shuiyun. Her white clothes fluttered, her beautiful hair danced, her watery eyes seemed to be covered with ice mist, and her skin was as clear as jade. She gave people a kind of beauty that was as cold as snow and graceful. During the battle, the purple clouds danced, which made her look like a dream. Lin Sun was suppressed and had to dodge from time to time, which made her look even more extraordinary. Some of the male students in the arena were fascinated. Even some of the female students had to admit that Shuiyun was indeed a rare and dazzling girl. Senior sister Shuiyun is like the fairy of ninth heaven, graceful and extraordinary, while Lin Sun is a clown. He won't be able to jump around for long. A young man said slowly, full of admiration and praise. Yes, senior sister Shuiyun's control of the purple light Rui skill is getting more and more profound. I'm afraid it won't be long before she can step into the Tao Insight realm and enter the Zhen Wu side courtyard to cultivate. Many people echoed. In their eyes, Lin Sun was completely suppressed by Shuiyun. He was as embarrassing as a clown. It was extremely ridiculous. Soon, the battle went on for 500 rounds. Clap. Suddenly, a resounding slap resounded. People who were impressed by Shuiyun's demeanor and cheered for her felt dizzy. In the arena, Shuiyun's figure staggered and stepped back more than 10 steps. On her white and beautiful face, there was a red palm print, which soon swelled up. The most terrible thing was that Shuiyun couldn't control her figure in the end. She staggered and fell outside the arena in an embarrassing posture. The cheers of the audience stopped abruptly. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. What the hell just happened? Shuiyun was slapped out of the arena by that boy? How could this be possible? Many people were stunned there as if they had seen a ghost. Lin Sun was suppressed in the fierce battle just now. How could he become like this in a twinkling of an eye? The arena was silent for a while. Well, I'm sorry. I used too much force just now and couldn't hold it back. It's on my face. I'm sorry. Although Lin Sun's words were apologetic, his expression was very perfunctory. Seeing this, everyone present was burning with anger and gnashing their teeth. It was too abominable. Shuiyun was the goddess in their hearts. How dazzling she was. But now, she was slapped in the face by this abominable guy in public. This was outrageous and deserved to be punished by God. Shuiyun was stunned. It seemed that she was stunned by the slap. After a while, she came to her senses and looked at Lin Sun with resentment. She couldn't control her anger any longer and screamed, "I'll kill you!" How precious was her identity! She was like a proud genius, and she was surrounded by stars wherever she went. How could she have imagined that she would be slapped on the face by someone one day? She was completely furious and wanted to kill Lin Sun at all costs. What? You can't afford to lose? This makes me very disappointed in martial arts courtyard. It's just a slap. Take it as a lesson. Don't be so arrogant in the future, okay? Lin Sun scolded unhappily. Shuiyun, bear with it for a while. Let me deal with this boy. Jin Zhulu stepped forward and persuaded Shuiyun, who was about to lose her temper, to take her away. Staying here would only make Shuiyun more embarrassed. At this time, all the people in the field came to their senses. Shuiyun was defeated by a slap. For a while, the crowd was angry and they all accused Lin Sun. Lin Sun, are you still a man? Is this how you treat women? What a jerk. Bah! It's shameful for you to be so cruel to women. Don't stop me. I'm going to avenge Sister Shuiyun and kill this lawless bastard. Lin Sun stood alone in the martial arts field, panting, pale and soaked in cold sweat. It seemed that he couldn't hold on any longer. But he still looked lonely and sighed. The world is like a chess game, but it's hard to meet an opponent. I'm lonely at the top. A group of people were speechless. He was so tired, but it was still hard to meet an opponent. Could he not be so hypocritical and shameless? Chi Tsangmei sighed inwardly that this guy was really good at arousing hatred. One sentence aroused public anger and was condemned by thousands of people. Is this what you mean by a phoenix without feathers is not as good as a chicken? Princess Xianxian seemed to understand. I didn't mean Shuiyun. Hua Wuyo replied expressionlessly. Princess Xianxian was thoughtful. She vaguely felt that there was something wrong with Lin Sun. Just over 200 points. I thought it was great. On the martial arts field, Lin Sun put away Shuiyun's identity nameplate and couldn't help muttering. Some people with sharp ears heard it and shouted angrily. But soon, Lin Sun figured it out. It was very difficult to accumulate points in the school. Most of the students' cultivation was closely related to points, such as exchanging elixirs, reading ancient books in the Sutras Pavilion, and going out to practice. Lin Sun, I'll fight with you. At this time, Jin Zhulu appeared. His eyes were as cold as lightning with a murderous look. A trace of coldness flashed in the depths of Lin Sun's black eyes. This guy finally jumped out. Jin Zhulu had personally said that he had seriously injured Lin Xiefeng, causing Lin Xiefeng to be still recuperating. Chapter 486. Jin Zhulu. Ranked 9th on the Spiritual Sea Gold list. He was famous in the martial arts yard and had many glorious achievements that were talked about. His bearing was slender and handsome, and every single move he made revealed an oppressive and fierce, imposing aura. It was an aura that could only be tempered through long periods of battle. Crack! Without any nonsense, Jin Zhulu threw out his identity nameplate and went straight to the martial arts field. His figure was like a spear, with wisps of light steaming out of his body, which made him look elegant. All the people present were excited at once. Now Jin Zhulu showed up, which gave them the hope to defeat Lin Sun and completely beat him down to the mortal world. Attrition warfare? Well, let me have a rest first. Even a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm can't bear 2 battles in a row. Lin Sun said and sat down on the ground. Everyone despised him immediately. This guy was so thick-skinned that a practitioner of Tao Insight Realm couldn't bear it? A practitioner at that level wouldn't be tired even if he fought for 3 days and 3 nights in a row. I'll give you a chance. Do you need spiritual medicine? Jin Zhulu said coldly with no expression. No, what if it's poisonous? I've heard that there are many poisons in the world that can make people lose their strength silently. Lin Sun said with a smile. Jin Zhulu's face was cold. After a while, he said, Later, I'll let you have a taste of your cousin Lin Xiefeng's miserable defeat. This was obviously a provocation, but Lin Sun just smiled and said nothing. After a while, Lin Sun got up and said generously, "Come on." Humph! Jin Zhulu snorted coldly. Like a thunder, he took out a spear and attacked fiercely like a god of war on the battlefield. Rumble, the void in the martial arts field wailed, and the wind and clouds changed, which was all caused by Jin Zhulu. Needless to say, this person was extremely formidable indeed. His spear was suffused with a brilliant glow of spirit energy as it pointed towards the heavens and the earth, and its might was ferocious. He seemed to possess an arrogant bearing of killing gods and Buddhas that obstructed his path. As expected of an extraordinary figure that was ranked at the 9th position on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings. This shocked many students in the field. Qi Tsangmei, Huoyo and others also looked serious. Jin Zhulyo's fighting capacity was obvious to all. He was not weaker than any talent. Especially when it came to a real battle, Jin Zhulyo's divine bravery was unparalleled, and the combat strength he displayed was even stronger. Compared to Marquis Lingtian, Zhao Jingyin, he was not much inferior. Kill. The battlefield was filled with Jin Zhulyo's explosive shout that surged with killing intent, and it was like a thunderclap that shook the 9 heavens. His black hair fluttered in the wind while his spear shot out explosively, and his killing intent swept through the battlefield and caused waves of exclamations of shock. Lin Sun, on the other hand, looked much dimmer. He was suppressed so much that he couldn't even raise his head. Soon, he showed signs of defeat and was almost blasted out of the arena several times. At some point in time, many more people had appeared in the field. Zui Yujing, who was ranked 3rd on the Spiritual Sea Gold leaderboard, and Zhao Jingwen, a disciple of the imperial family with the most noble status. There was no lack of students from the Spiritual Rune Courtyard, the Divine Strategies Courtyard, and the Hidden Dragon Institute. There were even a few instructors who had been alarmed and had come to watch the battle. Ning Meng, Shi Yu, Yi Qi, Gong Ming. Lin Sun's old friends had also come. They were now cultivating in the Hidden Dragon Institute. They were all very surprised that Lin Sun was fighting in the martial arts courtyard. They had thought that he was still in closed-door cultivation on Heart Cleansing Peak. They didn't expect that he not only came out of closed-door cultivation, but also came to Green Deer School and made a scene, attracting the attention of all. The situation is not good. Yi Qi, who was as round and fat as a ball, opened his eyes wide. Hey, hey, hey! Hearing this, Shi Yu and Ning Meng couldn't help but laugh mysteriously. What are you doing? Don't you see that Lin Sun is being suppressed? He is almost beaten to the ground. Yi Qi glared at them. Alas, you still don't know Lin Sun. This guy looks harmless, but he has more bad ideas than anyone else. He is very insidious. Ning Meng patted Yi Qi's shoulder as if he had been through this. Jin Zhulu is going to suffer. Shi Yu said slowly. Yi Qi was stunned, feeling that something was wrong. It's like he is pretending to be weak to eat a tiger. Gong Ming, who had been silent all the time, commented. When Yi Qi was about to say something, there was an uproar in the field. In the martial arts field, Jin Zhulu was punched on the shoulder by Lin Sun and flew out. No one could see clearly what happened. Just now, Lin Sun was obviously dodging and was about to be defeated. But in a moment Jin Zhulu was beaten back. All the people present were surprised and felt something was wrong. Yi Qi's lips twitched fiercely. He finally understood that Lin Sun was pretending to be weak before. Kill! Jin Zhulu shouted. He was also surprised and confused by Lin Sun's one punch. He didn't expect that Lin Sun could still fight back. But soon, Lin Sun flashed like a ghost, broke through the heavy attacks and kicked Jin Zhulyo's lower abdomen. Because the speed was too fast, everyone felt their vision blur again. Jin Zhulu let out a miserable cry and fell face first onto the ground. All the people present were dumbfounded. Jin Zhulu was so domineering and brave before, but why he suddenly couldn't suppress Lin Sun? The revenge begins. At this time, Qi Tsangmei and Hua Wuyo also knew that Jin Zhulu couldn't hold on anymore. They were all surprised. Lin soon disappeared for 2 months, but now he seemed to be stronger, which made people unable to figure out how strong he was. Go to hell. Jin Zhulu obviously didn't believe it. His face was livid and his hair was disheveled. He held the spear and waved it. His whole body was full of brilliant light and terrible power. Ho ho! Lin Sun smiled brightly without saying a word. But his smile became a kind of provocation and humiliation in Jin Zhulyo's eyes. For all the people watching the battle, Lin Sun's smile was also very dazzling. It was an ugly look of a villain intoxicated by success. Crack! But very quickly Jin Zhulyo's forehead was slapped, and there were 5 blood-red fingerprints on his smooth forehead. Everyone present couldn't help but feel horrified, and they felt that something was off. His forehead is really hard. It's not broken. Lin Sun muttered. You're courting death. Jin Zhulu couldn't keep calm anymore. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was livid. He roared like thunder and attacked crazily. Rumble on the martial arts practice field. The void was chaotic and the divine light was rolling. The dazzling light made people dare not look at it directly. You can't do it. Why don't you admit defeat now? I have to fight with others later. I can't waste time on you. When Lin Sun's voice sounded, Jin Zhulyo's face was punched hard. Blood sprayed from his mouth and nose, and many teeth flew out. Jin Zhulu screamed miserably. All the people present felt the pain. This punch was really fierce. Some experienced people had already keenly noticed that Lin Sun's previous performance was obviously showing weakness on purpose. I'll kill you! With a roar, Jin Zhulu rushed out again. His hair was disheveled, and his cheeks were red and swollen like a pig's head. He looked very miserable. He didn't have the elegant demeanor he had before. Instead, he was like an enraged beast, flustered and exasperated. He was really furious. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he was first punched flying by Lin Sun, then kicked in the abdomen and slapped on the forehead. At this moment, even his cheeks were almost smashed by Lin Sun's punch. How could he endure this? The most hateful thing was that Lin Sun had been smiling brilliantly all the time, and what he said was even more infuriating. How could he possibly keep calm? This guy did it on purpose. He must have shown weakness on purpose when he fought with Shi Yunpeng and Shui Yun. He's been deceiving them all the time. At this moment, even the slowest people came to an understanding, and their expressions became interesting. There was surprise, embarrassment, resentment, and shock. This fact was difficult for them to accept, and they were extremely disappointed. They thought that Lin Sun would have to coil up like a dragon in the martial arts courtyard, but they never expected that he hadn't used his true strength at all from the beginning to the end. What made them feel ashamed and resentful was that they didn't understand it until now. It was so hateful. You've already seen it? Princess Xianxian was a little displeased. How could a person who could defeat Marquis Lingtian be so simple? Hua Wuyo was expressionless. At this time, Ning Meng, Shi Yu, Yi Qi, and Gong Ming were all laughing. As they expected, Lin Sun had deceived another ignorant guy. Boom! In the martial arts practice field, an earth-shattering collision sound rang out. In the smoke and dust, Jin Zhulu was suppressed to the ground. Lin Sun stepped on him with one foot, making him unable to struggle to get up. When this scene appeared, everyone was speechless and deathly silent. Many people were stupefied, unable to believe their own eyes. Compared with Shi Yunpeng and Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu was defeated so miserably that people couldn't bear to see it. How could Jin Zhulu, who ranked 9th on the Spiritual Sea Golden List, be suppressed like this? They couldn't accept this result. In the field, Lan Yu's expression was the most interesting. He was so angry that he almost coughed up blood when Lin Sun called him white hair. He wanted to fight on the stage several times but failed, which made him extremely aggrieved. Originally, He was worried that if Lin Sun was defeated by Jin Zhulu, he would have nowhere to vent his anger. But when he saw this scene, he suddenly stiffened and looked uncertain. He was not stupid. Naturally, he could see that Lin Sun didn't use his real skills before, and Jin Zhulio's crushing defeat made him feel a little scared. How could this hateful guy be so strong? Not only Lan Yu, but also the others present couldn't figure it out. Alas, 3 wins in a row. Lin Sun sighed. As he spoke, he kicked Jin Zhulu out of the martial arts practice field. Jin Zhulu fell hard to the ground and fainted directly. He used his real strength to seriously injure Jin Zhulu. It was not easy for Jin Zhulu to recover. There was no other way. This was Green Deer School, where killing was forbidden. Otherwise, Lin Sun wouldn't mind ending Jin Zhulio's life. Jin Zhulu was defeated. Everyone realized Lin Sun's strength. When they heard his sigh, they didn't feel as angry as before, but their faces were still very ugly. Arrogant. Absolutely arrogant. He looked down on their martial arts school. How hateful. Is there anyone else? Chapter 487. Is there anyone else? Lin Sun's words were not imposing at all. It seemed very perfunctory and light. But it was this careless attitude that made the students of martial arts courtyard very angry. Arrogant, too arrogant. However, even though they were angry and aggrieved, no one dared to step onto the martial arts field to fight with Lin Sun for a while. They all understood that the reason why Lin Sun dared to be so arrogant was not arrogance, but his strength could not be underestimated. The defeat of Shi Yunping, Shui Yun and Jin Zhulu had already proved this. At this time, anyone who looked down on Lin Sun was absolutely stupid. Many people were also shocked. Shi Yunping and the other 2 were all first-class figures in martial arts courtyard. They were ranked on the Sea Spirit Golden List and were famous. Even they were no match for Lin Sun. It could be imagined how powerful Lin Sun's cultivation was now. If they didn't send out peerless figures, it would be difficult to suppress him. Qi Tsangmei, Hua Wuyo and other people who had enmity with Lin Sun felt quite complicated at this moment. After only 2 months, Lin Sun seemed to have been reborn and became more and more unpredictable. They still remembered that when Lin Sun defeated Marquis Lingtian at the birthday banquet of Empress Emperor, he was only at the middle stage of Sea Spirit Realm. But now Lin Sun was at the peak of Sea Spirit Realm. Alas, the trick of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger has been seen through. Now even fools know not to jump into the pit. Shi Yu sighed in the distance. Ning Meng, Yi Qi and Gong Ming also deeply agreed, and from the bottom of their hearts, they were also shocked by Lin Sun's current strength. This guy was becoming more and more abnormal. He advanced by leaps and bounds on the road of cultivation and was far ahead of them, which made them feel that it was difficult to catch up with him. In the martial arts field, Lin Sun saw everything and couldn't help sighing in his heart. He knew that it was impossible to cheat people like just now. Suddenly, he looked at Li Xiaofei in the field and couldn't help but smile. He immediately shouted, "Ugly, it's your turn." Li Xiaofei's face suddenly became embarrassed and he roared, "Lin Sun, don't be so arrogant. Do you really think there is no one in martial arts courtyard?" Lin Sun frowned and said, "In this case, why not come up and fight?" Li Xiaofei looked uncertain. If it were in the past, he would have already rushed out, but now even Shi Yunping, Shui Yun and Jin Zhulu were defeated. How could he have the courage to fight with Lin Sun? Oh, this is the successor of martial arts courtyard? What a disappointment. Lin Sun. This infuriated the students who were present, and they all started shouting loudly. "A mole, what's wrong with you? You don't even dare to accept the challenge? Quick, go up and kill him. Didn't you hear him call you ugly? Even if we lose, we have to lose fair and square. How can we be afraid of fighting?" Jin. Li Usli Sun, he not. Li Chin. Li Sun, Li said. Li Lin. Finally, Lin's eyes fell on Lan Yu, the white-haired young man. White hair, you must be impatient. Come on, I'll give you a chance. Come up and fight with me. Lin Sun smiled brightly. Lan Yu's face changed. Obviously, he was struggling in his heart. Previously, he was so angry that he couldn't wait to be the first one to kill Lin Sun. But after witnessing the battles just now, he had already calmed down and realized that Lin Sun was extraordinary. He knew that if he fought and failed in the end, he would lose a lot of face. Therefore, although he was angry, he wanted to retreat. He didn't want to have a fierce conflict with Lin Sun at this time. But he didn't expect that Lin Sun would call his name at this moment. Whitehair. This humiliating way of addressing him made Lan Yu so angry that he was about to go crazy. What's wrong? Are you scared just like that mole? Lin Sun frowned. Since you want to die, I'll help you. Lan Yu was completely enraged, and he roared loudly before flashing into the practice grounds. He'd already disregarded everything, and if he continued to shrink back, then it wouldn't be long before he would become the laughingstock of the martial Dao courtyard. The audience burst into cheers. Lan Yu, a stunning figure ranked in the top 5 on Spirit Sea Golden List, was going to fight angrily. It was bound to be a peak duel. But different from before, many people in the field were a little worried. If Lan Yu was also defeated, what should they do? Seeing this, Shi Yu and Ning Meng laughed again. They looked at Lin as if he was a pig that was about to be slaughtered. On the martial arts field, the battle broke out. This time, Lin Sun didn't intend to hide it, because he couldn't hide it at all. Boom! Lin Sun straightened his back, his black hair fluttering in the wind. He stepped on ice dragon steps, as if walking in the clouds, surrounded by a light cyan glow. In a trance, people only felt that Lin Sun had changed. He had a kind of ethereal temperament. His black eyes were deep, and his appearance was delicate. He was like a clear spring in the deep mountain or a wisp of breeze in the pure land, without a trace of worldly aura. Even his attack was simple, natural, and illusory, but it gave people a feeling of perfection, harmony with heaven and earth, and harmony with all things. It was as perfect as the moon, natural and full, returning to nature. Is this his real skill? Someone whispered in a trembling voice. Many students of martial arts yard in the field were also shocked. At this moment, Lin Sun had an indescribable style, which made people afraid. It was a kind of invisible power, perfect and ethereal, shocking people's mind. Some instructors who were watching the battle in the distance couldn't help but be moved at this moment. Their cultivation was so high that they could naturally see that Lin Sun had reached the peak of Sea Spirit Realm. He was like a king who could defeat most of his peers. How on earth did he cultivate? Shi Yu and Ning Meng also showed a solemn expression. They were amazed by Lin Sun's style. Even those students of martial arts yard who hated and despised Lin Sun before had to admit that when Lin Sun really showed his strength, it was too extraordinary. Just for a moment, Lan Yu took the initiative to admit defeat. He didn't look angry, but a little bitter and absent-minded. When fighting with Lin Sun, he finally understood how powerful Lin Sun was. No matter how many secret methods and means he used, they were easily resolved by Lin Sun, and he couldn't struggle at all. He knew that it wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but that his opponent was too strong and had already stood at the top of all peaks. Unless the opponent had the same cultivation as him, he was doomed to lose. Therefore, Lan Yu admitted defeat without hesitation. Lin Sun didn't make things difficult for him. On the contrary, because Lan Yu took the initiative to admit defeat, Lin Sun thought highly of him. Lan Yu admitted defeat. Seeing this, the whole field was silent. The way they looked at Lin Sun also changed from disdain, anger, and hatred to fear, surprise, and shock. No one expected that a teenager in his teens could have such a terrible achievement in cultivation. Now everyone understood that Shi Yunping, Shui Yun, and Jin Zhulu didn't lose. Even in the martial arts courtyard, it was difficult to find someone like Lin Sun who could be on par with and contend with him. This kid is extraordinary. His vital energy is smooth, perfect, and flawless. He's already stepped foot into the peak of the Sea of Soul realm, and every single move he makes faintly shows signs of breaking open the Grand Tao and soaring upwards. In the distance, a young man in a jade robe sighed. He wasn't very handsome, but he had a kind of awe-inspiring heroic spirit. His eyes were like stars, and a pair of sword-like eyebrows slanted to the temples. Standing there with his hands behind his back, he gave people a kind of independent momentum. His name was Zhao Jingwen, a descendant of the imperial royal family with noble blood. His grandfather was the blood brother of the current emperor. In the martial Dao courtyard, Zhao Jingwen was similarly an existence that was like a blazing sun. His natural talent was peerless, and his talent and knowledge shocked the world. He was ranked first on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings. I'll meet him later. Next to him, a man with thin cheeks, a broad forehead, and a dignified appearance said softly. His eyes were flowing with light, like a peerless sword, disdainfully and frighteningly. He was Zhuo Yujing, a descendant of the Zhuo clan, a superior aristocratic family. He was ranked third in Sea Spirit Gold list. Forget it. There are not many chances to suppress him this time. It's not appropriate to fight with him again. After all, he has fought 4 battles in a row. Even if he wins, it's an unfair victory. Zhao Jinwen sighed. Just let it go? Zhuo Yujing frowned. Don't worry. The reason why I deal with him this time is just to test how much ability he has. Now it seems that he deserves his reputation. Zhao Jingwen's eyes were deep and he seemed to be thinking, most importantly, it's impossible to kill him in Green Deer School. There will be many obstacles, and even I can't act rashly. In this case, it's better to avoid for the time being, so as not to alert the enemy. Zhuo Yujing seemed to be unwilling. It's just a remnant of a ruined clan. If I kill him, then I kill him. Why go to so much trouble? You don't understand. If he was so easy to kill, he would have been wiped out long ago after he forced my elder brother Marquis Lingtian to kneel. Let's go. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Let him jump around for a while. Zhao Jingwen said and turned to leave. Zhuo Yujing was stunned. She glanced coldly at Lin Sun in the distance. Finally, she took a deep breath and left with Zhao Jingwen. At the same time, Lin Sun in the martial arts practice field sensed something and looked over. When he caught a glimpse of Zhuo Yujing and Zhao Jingwen, he immediately frowned. 2 masters. At least they were more powerful than Lan Yu. This was Lin Sun's evaluation. Even though he was now at the peak of Sea Spirit Realm, he still felt a trace of danger. At this moment, Lin Sun dared not underestimate Martial Arts Yard. As a gathering place of talents in Green Deer School, there were indeed hidden dragons and crouching tigers. Soon, Lin Sun collected his thoughts. After defeating Lan Yu, he still didn't intend to stop. He wanted to continue fighting. He really wanted to know who instigated all this. After all, Lin Sun offended the royal family of the empire. He had nothing to do with these students in Green Deer School. However, on the first day he came out of closed-door training, they provoked him fiercely. As long as he was not a fool, he would know it was not simple. Unfortunately, Lin Sun was stopped before he could continue fighting. A senior instructor of martial arts yard appeared and scolded the students to disperse and clear the field. Although the students of martial arts yard were unwilling to give up, they also knew that if they continued fighting, Lin Sun would win without any suspense if no peerless figure appeared. Lin Sun, you are a teacher of spiritual tattoo yard. How could you have a conflict with the students of martial arts yard? You are guilty. The senior instructor frowned. His name was Wang Qingtian, a great practitioner of Tao Insight Realm. Senior, do you believe that I was set up? You saw it just now. These students wanted to suppress me and force me to apologize to the royal family of the empire. Lin Sun shrugged. Wang Qingtian was stunned. He seemed to think of something and sighed. Don't worry. At least in Green Deer School, no one dares to hurt you. Lin Sun smiled brightly. I hope so. Wang Qingtian obviously understood something, but he didn't want to get involved in this dispute, so he left in a hurry. Good boy, you are getting more and more powerful now. Ning Meng strode over, patted Lin Sun on the shoulder, and laughed. Indeed, what happened today will cause a sensation in the whole Green Deer School soon. After all, you are a spiritual tattoo master of Spiritual Tattoo Yard, but now you have defeated so many influential figures in martial arts yard. It's hard not to be noticed. Yi Qi sighed with emotion. No matter where Lin Sun was, he would not be unknown. He had just come out of closed-door training and made such a big disturbance in Green Deer School. Are you praising me or making sarcastic remarks? Lin Sun was speechless for a while, but he was very happy in his heart. When he first became a teacher of Green Deer School, Sure Yu and others were taken out for training. They didn't meet each other in the end. Now that they met again, he was naturally happy. Speaking of which, since he entered the Forbidden City, his friends were Sure Yu, Ning Meng, Yi Qi and Gong Ming. Tell me honestly, did you eat some sort of immortal medicine? How did your cultivation suddenly advance by leaps and bounds and become so ferocious? Ning Meng said fiercely. Lin Sun was surprised. Did I make rapid progress in cultivation? I thought you had already surpassed me in cultivation after practicing in Green Deer School. They were speechless. The road of cultivation was full of dangers. It was not easy to go further. Only through experience could one understand how difficult this road was. Do you think everyone is as abnormal as you? Yi Qi rolled his eyes. Yeah, when you first entered the Forbidden City, you were only at the Heavenly Dipper realm, not even the Sea of Soul realm. But now, in less than a year, you have already stepped into the Sea of Soul realm. Who can compare with this kind of shocking advancement speed? Gong Ming couldn't help murmuring. Lin Sun, you are in a bad situation now. Sure you said. Lin Sun nodded and briefly told them about the current situation of Heart-Cleansing Peak. There was nothing to hide. Damn it, the Zhuo family and the Qin family are going too far. Ning Meng swore. Yi Qi and Gong Ming also frowned. They didn't expect that Lin Sun would be in so much trouble this time. Not only the Qin family and the Zhuo family. Sure Yu shook his head. Obviously, he had known something before. He said, what happened today must be instigated by someone. Otherwise, it would not have made such a big noise. Speaking of this, Sure Yu's expression became serious. More importantly, you are now a spiritual tattooist, teaching in the School of Spiritual Tattoos, and specially employed by the headquarters of the Commune of Spiritual Tattooists and the Academy of Spiritual Implements of the Empire. You once helped the Empress repair the Sword of Apocalypse. Under such circumstances, no one dares to offend you without instigation. As soon as these words came out, Ning Meng and the others also reacted. Indeed, with Lin Sun's current status and his identity as a young spiritual tattooist, ordinary people didn't dare to offend him at all. After all, offending Lin Sun was equal to offending the School of Spiritual Tattoos, the headquarters of the Commune of Spiritual Tattooists, and the Academy of Spiritual Implements of the Empire. And these three forces represented the most unique group, spiritual tattooists. If you offended a spiritual tattooist, who would refine spiritual weapons for you in the future, it should be noted that the higher your cultivation was, the more picky you would be about spiritual weapons. The common goods on the market couldn't meet your needs at all. Under such circumstances, you needed to find a special spiritual tattooist to refine spiritual weapons for you. From this, you knew that once you offended a spiritual tattooist, you couldn't count on their help. Of course, things were not so absolute. Lin Sun alone couldn't represent the whole spiritual tattooist community. However, a young spiritual tattooist like him was rare. When he grew up, his influence would only be greater and greater. In this way, Anyone who wanted to offend Lin Sun would have to think about the consequences, unless he was a real enemy. Do you know something? Lin Sun asked. Among these friends, Sure Yu was the most well-informed and resourceful one. Sure Yu didn't hide it and said, if I guess right, it should have something to do with Zhao Jingwen. Zhao Jingwen! Ning Meng, Yi Qi and Gong Ming were all taken aback. This guy was second to none in the martial arts yard. He had occupied the first place on the Sea of Spirit Gold list for many years and had never been shaken by anyone. Moreover, he was a descendant of the royal family of the imperial palace. He had a noble bloodline and a high status. If he was behind all this, it would be easy to understand. Because now everyone knew that Lin Sun had offended the royal family of the empire. As a member of the royal family, Zhao Jingwen naturally had a reason to target Lin Sun. Zhao Jingwen is not simple. Although Marquis Lingtian, Zhao Jingyin is his cousin, his status in the royal family is far lower than his. Sure Yu's eyes were calm, and he analyzed quickly. If Zhao Jingwen is really against you, you will be in big trouble. At least you have Zhao Jingwen as your enemy in addition to the Zhua and Qin families. Although Zhao Jingwen can't represent the whole royal family alone, the power he has is absolutely not to be underestimated. Then what should we do? Ning Meng cried. Don't worry, as long as we know who is behind it. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. Have you already made a plan? Sure Yu suddenly asked. He found that Lin Sun was calmer than he thought. Lin Sun nodded and said, You will understand in the future. He didn't want to say more, because he didn't want Sure Yu and others to get involved in this storm. After all, the enemy was different and it was too dangerous. Damn, do you still think we are brothers? Ning Meng shouted, very dissatisfied. When I need it in the future, I will naturally ask you for help, but it's not necessary now. Lin Sun explained. So what are you going to do now? Sure Yu asked. Lin Sun looked into the distance, where a golden stone tablet, tens of meters high, emerged in the smoke and clouds. It stood there, towering and eye-catching. That was the Sea Spirit Golden List. It listed the names of the 100 most outstanding Sea Spirit Realm students of Green Deer School. I heard that as long as your name appears on the Sea Spirit Golden List, you can get corresponding points as a reward? Lin Sun said. Yes. Sure Yu nodded and immediately reacted. Are you going to challenge the list? Ning Meng, Yi Qi, and Gong Ming were also stunned and looked at Lin Sun. I have no choice. I am in urgent need of points now, so I have to give it a try. Lin Sun sighed. Everyone was speechless. All the students of Green Deer School regarded the Sea Spirit Golden List as a sacred place. If their names could be on it, it was absolutely a rare glory. But Lin Sun regarded it as a way to earn points, which was too vulgar. Chapter 488. The Spiritual Sea Golden List was located on a mountain in Martial Courtyard. The mountain was thousands of feet high and covered with jagged rock. It was called Spiritual Sea Peak. After Lin Sun made the decision, he immediately walked over there. This guy really wants to get on the list. Seeing this, Sure Yu and Ning Meng finally realized that Lin Sun was not joking, so they hurriedly followed him. They were also curious about Lin Sun's ranking on Spirit Sea Golden List with his current foundation and strength. Most importantly, there were two ways to leave one's name on the Spiritual Sea Golden List. The first method was common knowledge. The Martial Dao Courtyard would hold a competition every year to change the name list of the Spirit Sea Gold rankings. This was the most common way. The second method was to charge into the Ascension rankings alone. However, one would have to pay a considerable amount of points. Moreover, when one charged into the Ascension rankings, one had to be very particular about it, and the test was extremely harsh. Generally speaking, few students would choose the second way. One reason was that it required too many points, and the second was that the test was too difficult. Not to mention ordinary students, even some top talents wouldn't choose the second way rashly. Obviously, Lin Sun was going to use the second way to get on the list. Hey, isn't that Lin Sun? He hasn't left yet. Is he going to the spiritual sea peak to get on the list? On the way, some students of Martial Courtyard were surprised to see Lin Sun approaching the area where the spiritual sea golden list was located. This guy is really restless. He's in the limelight just now. Now he wants to get on the list again. What's he doing? Damn it. He's too arrogant. Didn't he enjoy himself in the martial arts practice field just now? He still wants to get on the spiritual sea golden list. He doesn't take our Martial Courtyard seriously. You can't say that. Lan Yu, who ranked 5th on the spiritual sea golden list, was defeated by him. So, he must have a place on the spiritual sea golden list. But the test conditions for him to get on the list alone are so harsh. Maybe it's difficult for him to get on the list. Let's go and have a look. Discussions broke out everywhere, causing a commotion. Many students were attracted by the commotion, rushing towards the Spirit Ocean Peak. After the previous duels in the martial arts practice field, these students' attitudes towards Lin Sun had changed a lot. Even if they were unwilling to admit it, they had to admit that Lin Sun was indeed a martial arts genius with unimaginable combat effectiveness. Even in the Martial Dao Courtyard, he was one of the top figures. However, they didn't agree with Lin Sun's character. They thought that Lin Sun was too arrogant, unscrupulous, unreasonable, arrogant and domineering, and his moral quality was worrying. Therefore, when they realized that Lin Sun was going to challenge the rankings, these students felt provoked again and followed him with complex hostility. They would like to see when Lin Sun would act tough. Spirit Sea Peak. As soon as he arrived, Lin Sun felt an ancient aura assaulting his face. This peak wasn't high or beautiful, but it was full of traces of the vicissitudes of time, as if it had stood here for countless years. According to rumor, this peak had indeed existed since the ancient times, and it contained a mysterious and unfathomable energy. The current dean had utilized supreme ability to refine it and teleport it here. On the peak stood a stone tablet, which was dozens of meters high, completely black and filled with brilliant golden light. It was magnificent and majestic, dyeing the void golden, holy and glorious. On the stone tablet, the names of the top 100 students on the Spirit Sea Golden List were imprinted, and each name represented a talent in the Martial Dao Courtyard. For the students of the Martial Dao Courtyard, it was undoubtedly a great honor to have a place on the Spirit Sea Golden List. It represented a kind of identity, fame, and status. Climbing up the mountain, Lin Sun soon came to the ancient stone tablet. I heard that this stone tablet is the most precious treasure of an ancient orthodoxy in the ancient times, which can detect the combat effectiveness, talent, and potential of practitioners. It's extremely magical. Since the establishment of Green Deer School for thousands of years, countless peerless talents have left their names here. Sure, you sighed for a while. It could be imagined how extraordinary the origin of this stone tablet was, since the ancient times was the most precious treasure. Why is someone here in advance? Suddenly, Lin Sun noticed that a man in white was sitting cross-legged in front of the stone tablet. He faced the stone tablet with his back to the crowd, only showing his back. His black hair hung down softly, his back was ramrod straight, and his entire body was bathed in a layer of dreamy and illusory light golden sheen that resonated with the golden sheen that suffused the stone tablet. If one didn't look carefully, it would be difficult to notice his existence. Someone chose to challenge the Spirit Sea Golden List alone before Lin Sun? Sure, Yu, Ningmeng, Yi Qi, and Gong Ming couldn't help but be stunned, especially when they looked at the back of the man in white. It was as if they were not looking at a person, but a spiritual body that was integrated with heaven and earth. Such an indescribable momentum made their hearts palpitate. Who was this guy? Their pupils suddenly shrank. His aura is perfect and in harmony with all transformations. Moreover, he has faintly emerged the power of the Great Way. This guy is not simple. Lin Sun was also shocked. He could perceive that this man in white had stepped into the perfection of sea spirit realm like himself. He was absolutely a peerless genius. The unique and transcendent aura was stronger than that of the top figures of the younger generation that Lin Sun had met before. Who was he? There was such a figure in the martial arts courtyard? My God! Am I mistaken? It's Senior Brother Gu Yunting. Is it really him? Isn't Senior Brother Gu Yunting in closed-door cultivation? Why is he here? Does he also want to challenge the Spirit Sea Golden List? An uproar resounded out, and it was caused by the group of Martial Dao Courtyard students that followed Lin Sun here. They'd originally come to watch Lin Sun's show, but when they saw the figure of the white-clothed man, all of them revealed shocked expressions. Many students even showed admiration and fanaticism, especially some female students, who were dumbfounded. Gu Yunting? Lin Sun couldn't help asking in a low voice. Sure, you quietly pointed at the stone tablet in the distance and transmitted his voice to Lin Sun. Look at the position of the second place. Lin Sun's gaze swept over and instantly noticed that the name at the second place was shockingly written with 3 golden words, Gu Yunting. This fellow Gu Yunting isn't simple. Rumor has it that when he was born, a golden auspicious light descended from the sky and transformed into a flame that fused into his body. In the end, it developed into the golden body of Tao Flame. This is a terrifying innate attribute that was renowned in the ancient times, and it's rare in the world. Sure, you transmitted his voice swiftly, and his voice couldn't help but carry a trace of emotion. He was brought into Green Deer Academy to cultivate since he was young, and he was personally taught by an old freak in the academy. He'd always lived in seclusion and had almost no contact with the outside world, causing him to seem extremely mysterious. But there's no doubt that he's absolutely a unique and transcendent peerless figure in the younger generation. Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he heard this. Sure enough, there's no lack of monstrous geniuses in this world, and Gu Yunting was undoubtedly one of them. Even Lin Sun had heard of Gu Yunting's talent of golden body of Tao Flame, because this talent was really too powerful and world-shattering. It was said that when cultivated to the extreme, the body would be as solid and indestructible as if it was made of the essence of the Great Way. Moreover, one could control the Tao Flame and exert an incredible and terrifying power. Lin Sun's gaze fell on the first place on the stone tablet, and he couldn't help but be startled. Because just now, he and sure you were still discussing this name, Zhao Jingwen. Is Zhao Jingwen stronger than Gu Yunting? Lin Sun couldn't help asking. This is only Gu Yunting's ranking 5 years ago. During these 5 years, he's been in closed-door training and hasn't broken through again. It was also last year that Zhao Jingwen made a counterattack and pushed Gu Yunting's ranking from the first place to the second. Sure, you had obviously heard many things about Gu Yunting, and he answered fluently. You can imagine that in the past 5 years, Gu Yunting has been in closed-door training, but only Zhao Jingwen can shake his position. From this, you can see how nature-defying Gu Yunting is. So that's how it is. Lin Sun understood now, and when he looked at Gu Yunting's figure again, he couldn't help but have a trace of surprise in his eyes. Golden body of Tao Flame? What grade of innate attribute is this? Compared to his devouring abyss, which one was better? After that, Lin Sun shook his head. As far as Lin Sun was concerned, innate attributes were innate attributes in the end. Moreover, every innate attribute had its own wonders, just like plums, orchids, bamboos, and chrysanthemums. Each had its own advantages, and they were bound to not be lumped together. The true strength of an innate attribute still depended on one's combat strength in the end. Senior Brother Gu Yunting's cultivation has obviously become even more unfathomable after coming out of closed-door training this time. He's obviously coming to the Spiritual Sea Gold rankings to retake the first place. Yeah, he disappeared in closed-door training for 5 years, and now he's come out of nowhere. He's bound to shine brilliantly. What a pity! According to Senior Brother Gu Yunting's resources, if he participated in the Empress' birthday banquet, he'd probably have been selected by those unworldly experts at the first possible moment to cultivate in a mysterious ancient orthodoxy. There's a show to watch now. Doesn't Lin Sun want to charge through the rankings as well? He's bound to be completely suppressed by Senior Brother Gu Yunting. Numerous students of the Martial Dao courtyard arrived successively nearby. At this moment, all of them discussed in low voices with excited expressions, and their topics revolved around Gu Yunting. This obviously showed how extraordinary Gu Yunting's status in the Martial Dao courtyard was, and he was absolutely an existence that attracted the attention of all. Who does Lin Sun think he is? How can he be compared to Senior Brother Gu Yunting? This is a form of humiliation to Senior Brother Gu Yunting. Right, what sort of figure is Senior Brother Gu Yunting? Lin Sun is only an extremely arrogant clown before him. There were also some students that sneered and compared Lin Sun with Gu Yunting, and their words were filled with provocation and criticism. Shi Yu, Ning Meng, Yi Qi, and Gong Ming frowned and were about to refute. Meanwhile, the white-clothed man that sat silently before the stone tablet, Gu Yunting, stood up, and his entire body was suffused with a dreamlike golden light, causing him to possess an extraordinary bearing. Chapter 489. Gu Yunting stood up. His slender figure was like an exiled immortal that was coiled with a dreamlike and illusory golden sheen, and his soft black long hair fluttered in the wind, causing him to carry a graceful bearing. He wore white clothes and had his hands behind his back as he slightly raised his head to look at the stone tablet, and he emanated an indescribable imposing manner. Without a doubt, this was absolutely a peerless figure. The gazes of everyone present were drawn over, especially the students of the Martial Dao courtyard. All of them revealed expressions of anticipation and reverence. After 5 years of closed-door cultivation, Gu Yunting was bound to retake the first position on the Spiritual Sea Gold rankings. Amidst the silent atmosphere, Gu Yunting moved. He took a step forward, causing numerous golden flames to surge out from the ground and emit a dazzling radiance. He stretched out a fair and slender palm and lightly knocked on the surface of the stone tablet. In the blink of an eye, the ancient stone tablet emitted a strange fluctuation, and then a brilliant rain of light drifted down and enveloped Gu Yunting's entire body. Bang! On the stone tablet, rays of light seethed and produced a vast and boundless fluctuation, and the blazing luster surged like the ocean and was extremely dazzling. In an instant, he'd already retaken the first position. Senior Brother Gu Yunting is too strong. A young girl screamed, her face flushed with excitement, and her eyes were bright and filled with infatuation and fanaticism. The others were shocked as well. They saw with a single glance that Gu Yunting's name was like a blazing sun as it soared up to ascend to the first position. Lin Sun's deep eyes were suffused with a trace of a strange expression. Even he had to admit that Gu Yunting had indeed attained a peak in the spiritual sea realm. The most shocking thing was that he was still very young, like a blazing sun that had just risen. Such a person was bound to shine brilliantly on the path of the Great Way. But to everyone's surprise, all of this actually didn't end. Rumble! It was like the sonorous sound of the Great Way resounding out, shocking the mind, whereas the ancient stone tablet actually started to transform abruptly, and the names were all drowned out. After that, numerous unfamiliar names floated up into appearance. Completely different from before, these newly revealed names were all resplendent like blazing suns, and they were like numerous symbols of the Great Way that bloomed with an eternal luster. Everyone present gasped and opened their eyes wide, but no matter how hard they tried, they were actually unable to clearly see the names on the surface of the stone tablet. Those names seemed to be enveloped by an obscure force that flickered with blazing light, and they were utterly unable to be seen through. What's going on? Most of the people present were disciples of the Martial Dao courtyard, but it was the first time they'd seen such an unusual change to the Spirit Sea Gold rankings. 100 names on the list had disappeared, and then another 100 brilliant names that couldn't be seen had appeared. This was too mysterious and shocking. What did this mean? Could this be the legendary Spiritual Sea ranking? Someone said with a trembling voice. The Spiritual Sea Master List. When they heard this name, most of the students present seemed as if they were struck by lightning. They suddenly recalled that there was an even more mysterious ranking on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings, and the names that were able to be ranked on it were the most outstanding figures in the past few thousand years. Every single one of them could be said to be the best in the world, stunning a region. In short, this Spirit Sea ranking was the most outstanding 100 names in the thousands of years since the founding of Green Deer Academy. For thousands of years, no one knew how many talented students had been born in Green Deer Academy, but only 100 people were able to leave their names on the Spiritual Sea ranking list. From this, it could be imagined how difficult it was to be ranked on the Spiritual Sea ranking list. At least in Green Deer Academy before today, none of the 100 names on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings could be ranked on the Spiritual Sea Master list. Otherwise, it would have attracted the attention of the entire Academy. But today, Gu Yunting's appearance had caused a change in the Spirit Sea Gold rankings, and the Spiritual Sea Master list had appeared. Did this mean that according to Gu Yunting's current foundation, he could already be ranked on the Spiritual Sea Master list and stand shoulder to shoulder with the most outstanding 100 talents in the past few thousand years? All the people present were shocked, and the students of the Martial Dao courtyard were all excited as if they'd witnessed a miracle being born in front of them. Another monster. Sure, you muttered. Ning Meng, Yi Qi, and Gong Ming also deeply agreed. Gu Yunting was too strong, and he was simply in defiance of the natural order. If he could leave his name on the Spiritual Sea Master list, he would absolutely cause a stir in Green Deer Academy, and his name would spread far and wide within a day. Spiritual Sea Master list. Lin Sun raised his head and looked at the stone tablet that was emitting golden light. Even he found it difficult to see who those unfamiliar names represented. At this moment, Gu Yunting's whole body was covered by a rain of light, and he seemed divine and transcendent. After an unknown period of time, a sound that was like the sound of nature came out from the stone tablet. It was deafening, like the morning bell and evening drum of ancient times, and it crossed the long river of time and resounded in Green Deer Academy today. Swish, swish! At this moment, Lin Sun's whole body stiffened, and he keenly sensed that a stream of terrifying thoughts swept over from all directions. There was no doubt that the terrifying thoughts were released by the old monsters of the Academy, and they were also alarmed. In the past 139 years, the sound of the Great Way has reappeared on the stone tablet. Yunting, this child, is really extraordinary. After 5 years of closed-door cultivation, he ascended to the Spiritual Sea Master list and stood shoulder to shoulder with all the geniuses of the past and present. Amazing! An ancient sigh resounded between heaven and earth. All the people present were shocked again, and many people were dumbfounded. They all realized that Gu Yunting had succeeded. He had successfully ascended to the Spiritual Sea Master list. It wasn't long before the golden light on the stone tablet fell silent and stopped surging. The rain of light on Gu Yunting's body vanished to reveal his ramrod straight and slender figure. His white clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind, and he seemed like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. He turned around and seemed to intend to leave. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun saw Gu Yunting's appearance clearly. This was a handsome and delicate young man with eyes that were clear and bright like the stars in the sky, and he wore clothes that were whiter than snow. He was accompanied by the karmic luck of the heavens and the earth since he was born, and he possessed the natural talent of the golden body of Tao flame. Now, as he stood there casually, others could discern with a single glance that he was a dragon among men, a peerless genius. "Senior Brother Gu," Greetings, Senior Brother Gu. All the students of the Martial Dao courtyard spoke with a tone that carried reverence and reverence. Gu Yunting only nodded with a tranquil expression, and he floated away. From the beginning until the end, he didn't say a single word. It seemed as if no one or anything present here was capable of arousing his attention. This was an aloof attitude, but Gu Yunting did indeed possess the qualifications to be arrogant. Even after Gu Yunting's figure vanished, the atmosphere in the surroundings was still slightly silent, and many people hadn't recovered from the shock from before. That kid is really arrogant, Ning Meng muttered. That's because he has the ability to be arrogant. If you're unconvinced, then go charge up the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings as well. I guarantee that I'll be the first to prostrate myself before you. Sure, you ridiculed Ning Meng. Lin Sun paid no attention to all this as his gaze was drawn by the stone stele. He noticed that even if Gu Yunting had left, the name on the surface of the stone stele was still dazzling and radiant, and it was impossible to see through. Obviously, it was the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings, and it hadn't recovered to the Golden Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings from before. The Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings hasn't vanished. Someone noticed this as well, and a single sentence instantly drew the gazes of everyone present. The spirits of many seniors were excited, and they were burning with eagerness as they wanted to give it a try and leave a name that belonged to them. Of course, this was purely a type of longing. Let me give it a try. A young man walked forward and took a deep breath before circulating the cultivation in his entire body, and then he pressed his palm onto the surface of the stone stele. Along with a rumble, the stone stele glowed. How is it? With a face full of hope, the young man looked up and quickly searched for his name. But soon, he was disappointed. Until the stone stele returned to silence, he still hadn't found anything. Dude, you can't even make it to the top 100 of the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings. How dare you think about leaving your name on the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings? You're really bold. Ning Meng snorted with laughter. The young man suddenly blushed and turned away from the stone stele angrily. At this time, other students regained their composure and dispelled the unrealistic fantasies in their hearts. That was the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings, which was indeed not something they could climb. And they had found that the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings gradually disappeared, and the top 100 of the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings appeared again. The first place was still Zhao Jingwen, but Gu Yunting's name could no longer be found. Obviously, he had entered the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings and transcended from the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings. This made many students present sigh with emotion again. Lin Sun, don't you also want to make it to the Immortal rankings this time? Why don't you take action? Was he scared into shrinking back by senior apprentice brother Gu Yunting? Suddenly, someone spoke and called out Lin Sun's name in a provocative manner. Yeah, why don't you go up and give it a try? Maybe you can create a miracle. But obviously, with your strength, you're destined to be unable to compare with senior brother Gu Yunting. How many times have I said, don't compare him with senior brother Gu Yunting. He doesn't deserve it. Those students were obviously deliberately provoking and sarcastic to goad Lin Sun. In their opinion, perhaps Lin Sun could enter the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings today, but it was impossible for him to take advantage of this to show off. Because with Gu Yunting there, no matter how outstanding Lin Sun's performance was, it was impossible for him to enter the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings. Even to the extent that he couldn't compare with Zhao Jingwen and Zhuo Yujing, who were ranked first and second on the Spiritual Ocean Immortal rankings. Of course, this was the opinion of those martial arts courtyard students. Lin Sun, these guys have eyes but fail to see. They're deliberately slandering you. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Ning Meng cried out. I'm here to earn points, not to prove to others. Lin Sun rolled his eyes. Earn points, those students were dumbfounded. The spiritual ocean immortal rankings were so glorious and sacred, but this fellow actually came to earn points? This was simply an insult to the spiritual ocean immortal rankings, and it made one's hair stand on end. Lin Sun, do you still have the dignity of a cultivator? You're simply vulgar and despicable. Those students shouted angrily. Lin Sun couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these fellows, and he pondered for a moment before asking Sure You and the others, if my name is able to enter the spiritual ocean immortal rankings, will I be able to obtain more points? At this moment, Sure You, Ning Meng and the others were stunned. Truthfully speaking, they didn't know either because the spiritual ocean immortal rankings were too aloof, and it hadn't appeared for many years. No one was able to determine if one's name would be able to obtain the corresponding point. On the other hand, those martial arts courtyard students couldn't help but be furious. That was the spiritual ocean immortal rankings. It was a supreme glory that was sacred and inviolable. How could it be linked to points? This Lin Sun was simply too hateful. Chapter 490. The faces of the students of martial arts courtyard became gloomy. If Lin Sun hadn't shown extremely fierce fighting capacity in the martial arts practice field, they would have already taught Lin Sun a lesson. They had never seen such an arrogant and vulgar person before. Lin Sun ignored them and stood in front of the stone tablet, calculating in his heart. Previously, when he defeated Shi Yunping, Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu, and Lan Yu, he had obtained 4 nameplates, which added up to about 1,500 points, which was far from his goal of 5,000 points. That was to say, he needed to earn at least 3,500 points to take the stairway assessment. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. It was really troublesome. Although I don't know whether I can get points by entering the Spiritual Sea Master list, I know that if I can rank first on the Spiritual Sea Gold list, I can get 2,000 points as a reward. Sure, you said. Indeed. Lin Sun, why don't you try to rank first and get some powder as a reward first? Then you can consider whether to continue to enter the Spiritual Sea Master list. Ning Meng suggested carelessly. Lin Sun's heart moved. 2,000 points was indeed a large number. Arrogant. What do you think the first on the Spiritual Sea Gold list is? Is it something that anyone can casually climb? A student of martial arts courtyard shouted. You madman, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The other students also shouted. They were too angry. Lin Sun was arrogant enough, but Sure You and Ning Meng's words were also so arrogant, as if winning the first on the Spiritual Sea Gold list was a piece of cake. If you don't agree, how about betting with me? If I can do it, you will give me all your points. If I lose, my points will be yours. Lin Sun said with a smile, looking at those students. Sure, You and Ning Meng were all stunned. In order to earn points, this guy was crazy enough to bet with others. What on earth was he going to do? The students of martial arts courtyard were completely angry. When Lin Sun was in the martial arts practice field, he was like a profiteer, cheating points with his life. Now, he was going to bet to earn points. What was he if not a profiteer? They wondered how Lin Sun became a spiritual tattoo master and how he achieved what he had today. In addition to wealth, did he not care about face, dignity, and strength of character? I'll bet with you. A student stood up and angrily took out his identity nameplate. I want to see if you can rank first. Me too. How could I miss out on such a good thing? Soon, another 5 or 6 students stood out. They gnashed their teeth and wanted to bet with Lin Sun. Most importantly, they didn't believe that Lin Sun could win the first place. Why don't you look at who's ranked first? It was Zhao Jingguan, a legendary descendant of the royal family, a dazzling figure like the blazing sun. A vulgar and arrogant man like Lin Sun was destined to be a grain of rice, unable to compete with the sun and the moon. Other students calmed down a lot. Even Lan Yu, who ranked 5th on the Sea Spirit Gold list, was defeated by Lin Sun, which was enough to prove how powerful Lin Sun was. Therefore, they didn't dare to get involved. Don't you guys want to play together? Lin Sun's delicate face was full of smiles, warm and kind, looking at those students. Unfortunately, although these students were angry, they were not fooled. On the contrary, seeing Lin Sun so calm and confident, they had a vague feeling that something was wrong. What a pity, Lin Sun murmured to himself. He took a deep breath and looked at the steel with his black eyes, his expression becoming solemn and serious. At this moment, he seemed to have become another person, calm and composed, with a faint disdainful demeanor. Sure you, Ning Meng and others couldn't help but calm down and focus on the steel. Although they were talking and laughing, they couldn't help but feel a little nervous when Lin Sun was really going to enter the list. After all, the steel not only tested one's fighting strength, but also his talent and potential. As far as they knew, Lin Sun suffered a great disaster when he was born, and his unique talent attribute, Devouring Abyss, was taken away. This also meant that at least in terms of talent, Lin Sun was at a disadvantage, and couldn't be compared with Gu Yunting, who had golden body of Tao fire. Humph, pretentious. Seeing Lin Sun become serious, those students of martial arts courtyard all sneered. They were all waiting to see Lin Sun's performance. Buzz. Lin Sun stretched out his right hand and pressed it lightly on the surface of the steel. In the blink of an eye, the surface of the pitch-black steel was suffused with an obscure and strange fluctuation, and a dazzling golden light rose and fell like a tide. A wisp of extremely dazzling light suddenly gushed out from the bottom of the steel and rushed straight up. In the blink of an eye, it arrived at the top 10 area. Those students were horrified. Isn't this speed of entering the list too fast? Sure you, Ning Meng and the others secretly gasped. Although it wasn't the general list of spiritual sea, the golden list of spiritual sea was extremely extraordinary. Those who were able to leave their names on it were all the top students of martial arts courtyard, and there were only 100 seats. In the blink of an eye, Lin Sun was able to make his name soar up and rush into the top 10 area. This undoubtedly seemed to be very strong and eye-catching, and it was shocking. Don't worry. The top 10 is a hurdle every step, especially the top 3 places, which are like 3 majestic mountains. It's not so easy to climb them. A student analyzed calmly. Lin Sun once defeated Lan Yu, so it's normal for him to be able to do this. Next, let's see if he has the ability to enter the top 3. In this way, the other students also found that the light representing Lin Sun's result really rose slowly after reaching the top 10 area. This made them feel slightly relieved. 9, 8, 7th. As Lin Sun's result rose step by step, whether it was Sure Yu or the other students of martial arts courtyard, they all became more and more nervous. When they saw Lin Sun's result surpass the 5th place and reach the 4th place, the faces of those students who participated in the bet changed. But they didn't feel depressed and admit defeat because the real difficulty lay in the top 3. In the top 3 places, the first was Zhao Jingwen, the second was Zui Yujing, and the third was a girl named Yu Ruhua. Originally, Gu Yunting had been ranked second, but because he had been too heaven-defying and transcendent, he had directly crushed Zhao Jingwen, who was ranked first, and ascended to the top of the spiritual sea gold roll. His ranking had also subsequently disappeared from the spiritual sea gold roll. Zhao Jingwen, Zui Yujing, and Yu Ruhua, who had been ranked behind him, had also risen by 1 place. But no matter what, whether it was Zhao Jingwen, Zui Yujing, or Yu Ruhua, they were absolutely the giants among the younger generation of martial arts courtyard. They were like overlords that couldn't be shaken by anyone at all. Now that Lin Sun's result had reached the 4th place, could he still rise strongly and reach the top in one fell swoop? Everyone was paying attention to it. However, at this moment there was a sudden change. A sound like the sound of nature resounded, ancient and distant, as if it had crossed the river of time. At the same time, brilliant rays of divine light soared into the sky, resonating with the ancient tablet, and flowers of Tao fell one after another, shimmering with dazzling light, drowning the stone tablet, Lin Sun, and even the world. This, Shi Yu, Ning Meng, and the others stared their eyes wide open, and they were shocked in both mind and body. This phenomenon was even more magnificent than the one Gu Yunting had caused earlier, and there were flowers of Tao falling as well. That was the true energy of concept. Could it be that Lin Sun would unveil the spiritual sea general list and ascend into it? How could this be possible? The students of the martial arts courtyard cried out involuntarily in shock as well, and they were shocked by this magnificent phenomenon that appeared abruptly, causing their hearts to tremble. Gu Yunting had once caused a phenomenon earlier, and could it be that Lin Sun would follow closely behind him and ascend into the spiritual sea general list now? But in next to no time, someone noticed that even though the phenomenon was extremely magnificent and miraculous, the surface of the stone tablet was still the spiritual sea golden list, and the spiritual sea general list hadn't appeared. The thing that caused those students to be most excited was that after Lin Sun's result arrived at the 4th place, it suddenly stopped there and didn't rise anymore. Ha ha ha, I really thought a miracle would occur. So this Lin Sun is nothing great. Wishful thinking of ascending to the 1st place? Dream on. He won. Ha ha, he won. The heavens have eyes. Those students couldn't help but shout loudly with wild joy, and all of them held their heads high and were indescribably complacent. Shi Yu and the others were stunned as well. How could such a magnificent and miraculous phenomenon become like this? Dong. Meanwhile, another Tao tune that was like the sound of nature resounded out, and golden rays of light formed into a flower of the grand Tao on the ancient tablet that shot up into the 9 heavens and fell down to the ground, completely drowning that place. It was too dazzling and divine, and even Lin Sun's figure couldn't be seen clearly. The hearts of everyone present trembled. The phenomenon is actually still occurring. Could it be that everything has only just begun? But when they saw the surface of the stone tablet was still the spiritual sea golden rankings and Lin Sun's result hadn't changed, all the students of the martial arts courtyard heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts, and their expressions were filled with sneers and complacency. On the other hand, Shi Yu and the others frowned instead, and they were slightly unable to figure it out. It's too strange, and it's completely different from the phenomenon caused by Gu Yunting. What exactly is going on? Swish, swish, they didn't notice that at the same time the Tao tune resounded out, numerous terrifying thoughts gushed out from different areas of Azure Deer Academy, and they instantly enveloped this place. Another student is going to ascend into the spiritual sea general list? Who's this kid? I can't see through him. His figure is enveloped by the energy of grand Tao concepts, and it's impossible to estimate. The situation seems to be slightly off. Everyone look. Even though this phenomenon is extremely magnificent, the spiritual sea general list hasn't appeared. Has something like this happened in the past? It seems to have, but it's too blurry. The matters of the past have been covered up by someone, and all descriptions have been erased, causing others to be unable to find out the truth. Those terrifying thoughts were communicating, and all of them were slightly shocked as they were unable to see through the profundities within it. This ancient tablet had a mysterious origin, and it was passed down from an ancient orthodoxy during the ancient times. Even if it was refined all those years ago and moved within Azure Deer Academy for a few thousand years, no one was able to see through all the secrets of the stone tablet. Chapter 491. Those numerous terrifying thoughts represented the numerous old fellows that were lying dormant in Azure Deer Academy. Earlier, when Gu Yunting ascended into the Spirit Ocean Immortal rankings, it had alarmed them, yet never had they imagined that not long after, the ancient stone tablet would actually produce a phenomenon of the heavens and the earth once more. Moreover, the phenomenon this time was extremely special, and it hadn't been described in a few thousands of years, causing them to be surprised and bewildered. The grand Tao flower descended while golden rays of light shot into the heavens and the earth. What exactly did this represent? Dong. Suddenly, The ancient sound of the Tao that was like the sound of nature resounded once more from the ancient stone tablet, and it was filled with the aura of time and was mysterious and unfathomable. Rays of light seethed while divine radiance enshrouded the area, and it was like a waterfall of the grand Tao was descending from the stone tablet. Every single wave contained a profound and unfathomable aura. It's the third time. The phenomenon of the heavens and the earth is becoming more and more magnificent. Why have I never heard of such an incident occurring in the past? Strange, the spirit ocean gold rankings still appear on the stone tablet, and there's no trace of the immortal rankings. Those terrifying thoughts were shocked, and they were even more unable to figure it out. As for Shiryu, Ning Meng, and the others, as well as the disciples of the martial Tao courtyard, all of them were stunned on the spot at this moment. They were awed by the sound of the Tao, causing their minds to go blank. At this moment, the sound of nature that was filled with an ancient aura reverberated in the sky above the entire martial Tao courtyard, and it caused a great uproar and shock. All the instructors and students stopped what they were doing as they felt their hearts tremble, and they were unable to maintain their calm as they raised their eyes to look at the same place. Spirit Ocean Peak. Golden rays of light dyed the sky there, and the aura of the grand Tao transformed into a waterfall of divine radiance that descended into the world. It was like a divine paradise, and it was shocking. What's going on? Many people were bewildered. Dong. Not long after, the fourth sound of the Tao resounded out, and it resonated with the ancient stone tablet. Faintly, one could even see the phenomenon of flowers falling from the sky, divine light fluttering about, golden lotuses gushing out from the ground, and sages chanting scriptures. It was too blazing and grand, and it caused those terrifying thoughts to fall into silence and be unable to understand it. At this moment, it wasn't just the martial Tao courtyard, the Hidden Dragon Institute, the True Martial Courtyard, the Spirit Inscription Courtyard, the Divine Strategy Courtyard, and some other even more mysterious areas were reverberating with the sound of the Tao. It was like the roar of a dragon or the cry of a phoenix, and an auspicious aura suffused the sky. On a limestone path, Gu Yunting, who wore white clothes and was otherworldly like a banished immortal, had suddenly stopped moving, and then he turned around to look towards the distance. His eyes that were brilliant like stars shot out a dazzling light violently, and he seemed to want to see through everything. Then, he was stunned. It was the position of the Spiritual Sea Golden List. Could it be that there was someone else who was also trying to break through the Spiritual Sea Master List after him? Gu Yunting was silent for a moment, and then his figure suddenly vanished on the spot. The tune of the Tao is resounding, and the grand Tao concepts are numerous. Could it be that something shocking is about to occur? The entire Green Deer Academy was alarmed, and there was an uproar everywhere. At the foot of the Spirit Ocean Peak, a skinny old man appeared out of nowhere. He looked extremely ordinary, and his hands were behind his back as he walked up the stairs. "Heh, you don't want to leave your name?" The old man raised his head. His face was thin, his eyes were muddy, and the corners of his eyes were filled with wrinkles, causing him to emanate an aura of age. But when he raised his eyes to look at the ancient stone stele, his muddy eyes suddenly became deep like a pair of black holes. Mysterious markings of the grand Tao surged within them, and they even penetrated space and seemed to be capable of seeing through the world. "I can't allow this to continue." After a short while, the skinny old man frowned and flicked his sleeve. It was a casual movement, yet a gust of violent wind suddenly arose in the sky, and it blew away the layer of clouds in the surroundings. The surging golden light and descending divine radiance seemed as if they were wiped away by a shapeless hand, and they instantly vanished into thin air as if they'd never appeared. Swish! At the same time, a shapeless force enveloped down and covered this area. Instantly, all sound vanished. The azure blue sky was silent, and the ancient stone stele was still suffused with golden light, yet it wasn't as grand as it was before. Who's making a move? This. What? You? You've been alarmed as well? Those terrifying consciousnesses had always been paying attention to this area, and when they noticed all these changes, it caused them to be astounded. Especially when they noticed the figure of the skinny old man, those terrifying consciousnesses seemed to feel disbelief and fell into shock. All of you can leave. Don't tell anyone about what happened today. The skinny old man sighed lightly. His words were spoken in a casual manner, yet it was like an order that couldn't be disobeyed, and it caused those terrifying consciousnesses to withdraw their consciousnesses without the slightest hesitation. At the same time, the skinny old man arrived at the top of the mountain, and he saw Sure Yu and the others who'd fallen into a dumbstruck state, as well as the students of the Martial Dao courtyard. In the end, his gaze descended onto Lin Sun, who stood before the stone stele. So it's this little fellow. At this moment, Lin Sun's state was extremely strange. It was as if his soul had left his body and arrived at a river of time. The numerous waves seemed to be floating and sinking from ancient times until now, and they flowed along an unfathomable path towards an unknown distance. Lin Sun stood towering on one of the waves and moved against the current, and his gaze seemed as if it was looking back in time and wanted to recall the history of the past. He saw many figures, each of which was as bright as the blazing sun, floating and sinking on the waves. Each of them was so eye-catching that they illuminated a part of the world. When Lin Sun's gaze fell on the nearest figure, he immediately saw that the golden light on the other's body faded away, and a burly and majestic figure appeared. It was a young man with broad eyebrows and purple light in his eyes. He was born with a strange phenomenon, and he had an iron-blooded and unyielding momentum. In an instant, Lin Sun came to a realization in his heart. Xinghen, ranked 100th on the Spiritual Sea General List 149 years ago. This young man turned out to be a talent from 149 years ago. Until now, his mark was still on the Spiritual Sea General List and hadn't faded. Lin Sun was shocked. He moved his gaze and looked at the figure in front of Xinghen. In an instant, the image of a beautiful woman appeared. She wore plain clothes and green shoes, and her black hair was coiled into a bun. Her face was beautiful, and she carried a snow-white silver sword on her back, looking valiant and formidable. Su Yao, ranked 99th on the Spiritual Sea General List 399 years ago. Lin Sun finally understood that the place where he stood was an illusion derived from the Spiritual Sea General List. The figures that appeared in the River of Time were the peerless figures on the Spiritual Sea General List. Even after thousands of years, their rankings were still there and had never been shaken. In other words, they were the 100 most outstanding talents in the sea spirit realm of Green Deer School in the past thousands of years. No, Gu Yunting has already entered, and the ranking of the Spiritual Sea General List has been shaken and has undergone subtle changes. But I don't know where he is at this time? Lin Sun was lost in thought. He continued to look down. As his eyes met, the figure that was originally shrouded in bright golden light and could not be looked at directly showed its true face one after another. Qin Wuyang, ranked 98th on the Spiritual Sea General List 477 years ago. Song Qinqi, ranked 654 years ago. Hua Linyuan, ranked 813 years ago. Zhao Yunxi. Looking at them one by one, Lin Sun's emotions fluctuated. Those figures all represented the most dazzling talents in a certain period in the past. Each of them had their own power. Some were heroic, some were elegant, some were violent and powerful. If Lin Sun didn't guess wrong, most of the figures he saw were from the imperial family and the 7 top aristocratic forces of the empire through their surnames. This made Lin Sun sigh with emotion. This was the foundation of the big forces. Soon, Lin Sun saw a familiar figure, Gu Yunting, ranked 64th on the Spiritual Sea General List. This guy is really abnormal. It's absolutely not easy for him to rank 64th among the 100 talents born in thousands of years. Lin Sun was sighing with emotion in his heart when he suddenly found a problem. He couldn't see the figure in front of Gu Yunting clearly. The figure was filled with golden light, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see its face. At the same time, Lin Sun also found that those figures he had seen through were now flowing away with the waves and falling behind him. Did this mean that with his current combat strength, foundation and talent, he could rank 63rd on the spiritual sea general list? Dong. Suddenly, a sound like the sound of nature rang out, making Lin Sun's mind tremble. At the same time, an obscure and strange force poured into his body and began to spread, as if it was perceiving everything in his body. Inexplicably, Lin Sun felt a touch of resistance in his heart, as if an invisible eye was peeping into his inner secrets. In particular, when this force was about to touch the vicinity of the heart vessel, Lin Sun became agitated, and the spiritual vein, in the 4 acupoints of the heart vessel, was no longer silent, but became extremely hot. Lin Sun was shocked and realized something was wrong. Buzz, right at this moment, the door to heaven that stood towering in his sea of consciousness emanated a fluctuation that swiftly spread out. In an instant it collided with the mysterious force that poured into his body. Boom! Lin Sun only felt that his body was about to explode, like 2 volcanoes colliding, but he was unable to control all this. Whether it was the mysterious force that poured into his body or the power from the gate to heaven, they were all too mysterious. At this moment, they chose his body as the battlefield and collided violently with each other like enemies meeting each other. What was going on? Lin Sun was shocked. The gate to heaven had been in silence since it was suspended in the sea of consciousness, and Lin Sun had always regarded it as a passage to the heaven accessing place, so he didn't pay any attention to it. But who would have thought that it would act strangely today? In just a moment, the mysterious force was dispelled, but before Lin Sun could breathe a sigh of relief, he heard a bang. The sound like the sound of nature rang out again. At the same time, the mysterious force appeared again and poured into his body, which was much more powerful than before. The gate to heaven seemed to feel that it was provoked, and began to tremble frequently, releasing waves after waves to fight. Boom! Lin Sun only felt that his body was about to explode. The confrontation between the 2 forces made his soul tremble, and his whole body seemed to collapse. What the hell was going on? Chapter 492. Bang! 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 Soon, Lin Sun couldn't care about anything else. The battlefield in his body was so terrible that his meridians, acupoints, muscles, bones, flesh and blood were like glass that could not withstand heavy blows, making a cracking sound. Clouds of blood mist burst out one after another, and a section of meridians broke down one after another. The unspeakable pain almost made Lin Sun faint. He didn't expect that he would suddenly encounter such a disaster when he was just trying to get on the list. It even wanted to destroy his body. All this happened so suddenly that Lin Sun couldn't help being a little absent-minded at the moment, even though he was as firm as a rock. Was he going to die inexplicably today? It was ridiculous. He didn't have time to refine the armor with spiritual tattoos, kill the enemies of Lin family, or avenge his parents. How could he die like this? Lin Sun was unwilling. His spiritual vein was dug out when he was a child. It was not easy for him to survive. How could he die in such a hurry? After endless hardships, he rebuilt his spiritual vein, reached the unprecedented extreme of sea spirit realm, and had his own way of cultivation. Now, did he have to stop here? Lin Sun was so unwilling. He struggled desperately to resist, but he was powerless to find that his body was like a battlefield occupied and controlled by 2 magical forces. They rushed and killed each other, which made him unable to change at all. Bang! 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 The insides of his body were like beans being fried, cracking sounds coming from inside his body. Even his internal organs were starting to crumble. When his body was about to collapse completely, the gate to heaven in his sea of consciousness began to move and suppress a crystal-clear bead. That was Amrita St. Pearl, the sacred treasure of Water Barbarian in the 9 branches of Voodoo Barbarian. When Lin Sun was practicing in the bloodthirsty camp, he killed an assassin from Water Barbarian and accidentally got this bead. It had been silent in his sea of consciousness. On the way to the Forbidden City, Lin Sun was swept away by the underwater whirlpool and passed through the black hole in the void. Then Amrita St. Pearl played its magical role and made Lin Sun appear in an ancient relic in the depths of the Soul Oblivion Sea. It was also there that Lin Sun took Green Tortoise Turtle, who had been trapped in the relic for many years, away safely with this Amrita St. Pearl. Lin Sun had thought that this bead was a treasure for traveling through the void and was destined to be of great use in the future. But he never thought that the gate to heaven would make a move and suppress the Amrita St. Pearl when his body was on the verge of collapse. Boom! If Lin hadn't perfected his star circulation and made his sea of consciousness extremely strong, this blow alone would have been enough to destroy his sea of consciousness. Even so, Lin Sun still had a splitting headache and his divine soul almost collapsed. But soon, Lin Sun noticed that a cool and warm power flowed out of his sea of consciousness like a clear spring and spread to every inch of his body. At this instant, the meridians, apertures, tendons, and bones that had collapsed inch by inch, the internal organs, flesh, and skin that were on the verge of collapsing seemed as if they'd consumed a peerless divine medicine, and they were repaired at an unbelievable speed and glowed with peerlessly terrifying vitality. The vitality was like a vast ocean, bright like the sun, nourishing the body. Wherever it passed, everything was transforming. In an instant, the boundless pain was replaced by an indescribable comfort. It was like bathing in the hot spring of magic medicine, cleansing oneself and sublimating the body. Lin Sun almost couldn't help moaning. He felt that he was in hell a moment ago, and the next moment, he was in the sky and wanted to become an immortal. It was indescribably wonderful and comfortable. At this time, Lin Sun finally knew the reason. The Amrita St. Pearl in his sea of consciousness was suppressed by the gate to heaven. The cool power like spring came from the Amrita St. Pearl. Does this treasure have the magical effect of reviving the dead? Lin Sun was surprised. And he found that at this time, his meridians, acupoints, flesh and blood, bones, internal organs and other areas were not only restored to their original state, but also undergoing transformation. Strands of miraculous vitality enshrouded him, causing his tendons and bones to become clean and shiny, causing his meridians and acupoints to become brilliant, causing his flesh and skin to seem as if they'd been cleansed and improved, and they carried a strand of dense and exuberant vitality that was burning like a furnace. Incredible! Was this a blessing in disguise? Lin Sun was excited and had a feeling of being reborn. He noticed that the mysterious energy that had surged into his body had been defeated once more and swept away completely. Everything was transforming in a good direction. Dong. But God seemed to deliberately oppose Lin Sun. Before he could carefully perceive the changes in himself, another ancient sound like the sound of nature rang out. At this moment, Lin Sun couldn't help feeling numb. It came again. Without giving him a chance to refuse, a mysterious energy that was even more powerful than before surged into his body, rampaging through his body. And the gate to heaven seemed to be irritated. It buzzed constantly, released rolling waves and rushed at Lin Sun again. The battle in his body replayed, and it was more intense than the previous 2 times. In just a moment, Lin Sun's body, which had been restored to its original state and become stronger, was once again like a glass bottle, full of cracks and about to collapse completely. The sharp pain made Lin Sun fall into the dark purgatory again, as if he was suffering cruel torture. The wonderful thing was that at the moment when his body was about to collapse and be completely destroyed, the Amrita St. Pearl was ruthlessly suppressed again, releasing the magical essence power, and began to repair Lin Sun's body, so Lin Sun returned to heaven from hell. But Lin Sun couldn't be happy anymore. All this was too dangerous, making him suffer a lot. If it continued, he was worried that he would be tortured to the point of collapse. All this was like a reincarnation. Hell and heaven exchanged, destruction and rebirth alternated, and life and death lingered here. If he didn't experience it himself, he would never be able to understand it. Dong, dong, dong. In the following time, the ancient sound of nature kept ringing. Every time it rang, there would be a mysterious force pouring into Lin Sun's body. At the same time, the gate to heaven was constantly fighting with the mysterious force, as if it regarded Lin Sun's body as a forbidden area and couldn't tolerate the mysterious force. And every time Lin Sun's body was on the verge of destruction, it was repaired by the power of the Amrita Saint Pearl. Again and again, like forging iron, it made his physical strength transform and sublimate again and again. In the process, Lin Sun didn't notice that behind him, the eyes of the skinny old man had been watching him. It was a pair of eyes as deep as black holes, intertwined with mysterious patterns of Tao, as if they were about to see through all the principles of the world. Is it a blessing in disguise? It seems that I don't have to do it. After a long time, the skinny old man was lost in thought. Lin Sun didn't know how long it had been, which seemed to be as long as a century, or like a battle of life and death. The ancient sound disappeared and no longer rang. In the sea of consciousness, the gate to heaven also returned to silence, majestic and mysterious. Only the Amrita Saint Pearl was missing. Lin Sun was stunned, and then he remembered that in the previous encounter, which was like a reincarnation, the Amrita Saint Pearl seemed to be completely ground up and became the nourishment of his body. This shocked Lin Sun. It was the sacred weapon of the water barbarian branch. It was of great importance and had the incredible power to travel through the void. How could it be obliterated? Didn't this mean that the power of the Amrita Saint Pearl had been completely integrated into his body? Lin Sun hurriedly checked his body. He saw that his body was shrouded by the bright vitality. The meridians, acupoints, blood, flesh, viscera, bones, and tendons were crystal clear, dust-free, like magnificent and holy works of art. His skin was also shining with crystal luster, and the power of life was flowing slowly. It was like going through a baptism of rebirth, so that everything in the body had an amazing transformation. The bones were as white as crystal jade, and the bones were incredibly hard. There was no trace of impurities in the viscera after the infiltration. They were like divine weapons, full of vitality and luster. The meridians and acupoints seemed to be glowing, pure and tough. As he breathed, the viscera, flesh, and chi in his body moved with the rhythm, making a sonorous sound, which was too wonderful for words. This was not a transformation in cultivation, but a comprehensive sublimation of his own body. It was like a treasured sword that had been tempered 100 times. It was spotless, bright, and radiant, and it possessed unimaginable vitality and intelligence. After being destroyed and repaired many times, and consuming a sacred weapon, the Amrita Saint Pearl, I built my current body. Lin Sun sighed with emotion. He could feel that although his cultivation had not broken through again, with the sublimation of his body, soul, and cultivation all reached a perfect state. "Little guy, you really surprised me." Suddenly, an old voice rang in his ears. For a moment, Lin Sun felt in a trance. The next moment, he appeared on the river of time again, standing on the top of the waves. Lin Sun's face suddenly became gloomy. It was not easy for him to get out of trouble before. Did he have to go through the same experience again? Don't be nervous. The power of the Tao Spirit Tablet has been silent and will not appear again. The old voice sounded again, and then Lin Sun saw a skinny old man beside him. He looked thin and his eyes were full of vicissitudes of life. He stood there casually without any power, but Lin Sun seemed to see a mountain, standing between heaven and earth, unshakable since ancient times. Suddenly, Lin Sun was shocked and realized that this old man was definitely an old monster with unfathomable strength. "Senior, why did you bring me here again?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "Aren't you curious about what happened just now?" The skinny old man's voice was flat, but it immediately attracted Lin Sun's attention. Yes, he just wanted to get on the list. Why did he cause so many incredible changes? Chapter 493. The old man was skinny, with his hands behind his back, standing on the river of time. His turbid eyes seemed to be able to see the mystery at the end of the river. Since the ancient times, so long as one is able to witness this place, then all of them are geniuses that possess the greatest natural talent in attaining the Tao in a certain period of time. Just like those silhouettes you're seeing now, they're the 100 most renowned and formidable young people in the past few thousands of years. The old man spoke slowly, his voice ancient. Their names are engraved here. Only a heaven's favorite that is stronger than any of them can shake their results and remove their names from the spiritual C ranking. Lin Sun listened quietly, looking into the distance. On the waves, the figures were flickering, overflowing with golden light like the sun. He had already guessed all this before, but he didn't know why he would encounter that life and death experience just now. When you can clearly see the name represented by a figure, it means that your current achievements are more outstanding than this genius in the past. If you can't see it clearly, it means that your ranking can only stop here. Hearing this, Lin Sun suddenly remembered that he had just seen the figure and name of Gu Yunting, and knew that he was ranked 64th. But he couldn't see who the figure in front of Gu Yunting was. According to the old man, didn't this mean that he could be ranked 64th on the spiritual C general list? In this way, Gu Yunting's ranking was pushed down to 65th by him? But you are different from them. Suddenly, the old man changed the topic, and looked at Lin Sun with his turbid eyes. At that moment, Lin Sun felt that all the secrets in his heart seemed to be seen through, and he felt uncomfortable all over. "Please give me some advice, senior." Lin Sun took a deep breath. "According to your talent and potential, if you are completely sensed by the power of the ancient Tao spirit steel, your ranking will definitely not stop here." The old man withdrew his gaze. "But your body is rejecting the power of the ancient Tao spirit steel, and you don't want it to perceive all your talent and foundation." His words were earth-shattering. Lin Sun's body stiffened, and he suddenly understood that the mysterious power that poured into his body just now came from the ancient Tao spirit steel. As for the so-called ancient Tao spirit tablet, it was easy to guess that it was the stone tablet that was imprinted with the Spirit C Golden ranking and the Spirit C General ranking. It was rumored that this tablet was passed down from an ancient sect in the ancient times. It was a mysterious treasure that was later refined by the headmaster of Green Deer Academy with his supreme magical power and moved it to this place. What Lin Sun couldn't figure out was why the gate to heaven would resist the power of the ancient Tao spirit tablet. Perhaps this is fate. The old man muttered to himself and said something strange. Lin Sun was surprised, but he didn't say anything. He wouldn't reveal the secret of the gate to heaven. You probably don't know this, but as long as you can make it to the ranking of spiritual C and leave your name here, you'll get a chance to enter the realm of ancient desolation and become a core disciple of a mysterious Taoist sect. The old man revealed a secret that caused Lin Sun's heart to tremble. This was indeed a rare opportunity, and to cultivators, it was no less than obtaining a path that was filled with hope. According to what the old man said, the geniuses that had been ranked on the spiritual C general ranking for thousands of years might have already gone to cultivate in that mysterious Taoist sect. Moreover, it was the treatment of a core disciple. Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but ask, "May I ask, senior, which mysterious Taoist sect did they go to?" "Heaven's Pivot Holy Land." The old man said a name with a strange expression. Even in the realm of ancient desolation, this Taoist sect can be said to be aloof from the world and extremely famous. Rumor has it that a true immortal was born in this Taoist sect, one that shines as brightly as the sun and moon, lives as long as the ages, and is immortal and brilliant. Immortal! Lin soon gasped in his heart. Cultivating until now, he gradually understood how difficult and ethereal the path of the great Tao was. As for immortality, it was even more unreal, like a dream, and no one could see it. But in the realm of ancient desolation, in the holy ground of heaven's pivot, there were actually rumors about immortals, and this was too shocking. Even if it was merely a rumor, it was sufficient to prove how strong the holy ground of heaven's pivot was. Unfortunately, your great Tao is destined to have no fate with the holy ground of heaven's pivot. Although the old man said this, there wasn't a trace of regret in his tone. This caused Lin Sun to be stunned, and he acutely noticed that the old man seemed to be very gratified to see an anomaly like him appear. The old man was silent for a long time, and then he suddenly sighed softly. He looked at Lin Sun and said, "Little fellow, you have too many secrets, and even I can't see through them. It's difficult to predict whether it's a blessing or a curse. But one thing can be foreseen: if you have a chance to enter the realm of ancient desolation one day, remember not to come into contact with the people of the holy ground of heaven's pivot, because it'll absolutely be a great disaster for you." Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. A great disaster? Could it be related to the rejection of the ancient tablet of Tao Spirit by the gate to heaven? Lin Sun vaguely felt that his guess was definitely correct, but he couldn't figure out the reason because he didn't know what all this meant. You'll understand when the time comes. But in Xiao Empire, you don't have to worry about it for the time being. The old man seemed to see through Lin Sun's doubts, so he couldn't help smiling and his voice became gentle. "Thank you for your advice, Senior." Lin Sun cupped his hands. "Remember, don't mention what happened today to others. No matter how many questions you have, you can't reveal a word. Be sure to keep it in mind," the old man exhorted. Lin Sun promised seriously and then suddenly asked, "May I know your name, Senior?" The old man stared at Lin Sun with deep eyes. "You've already guessed it, so why ask again?" Lin Sun was finally moved, and his black eyes were full of surprise. He did guess it, but he didn't expect that on the first day of his return to Green Deer School, he would alarm the mysterious old man, the dean of Green Deer School. When Lin Sun woke up, he felt like he had a dream and stood there in a daze. It was just a test, but he inadvertently learned many secrets and saw the true face of the dean of Green Deer School. This made Lin Sun realize that he had indeed made a big noise today. At least he didn't expect that the rejection of the perception of the ancient tablet of Tao Spirit by the gate to heaven would cause so many things. Heaven's pivot holy land. In the end, Lin Sun firmly remembered the name of this mysterious orthodoxy. The so-called catastrophe of the dean made Lin Sun instinctively vigilant. The vision disappeared? What on earth happened just now? A wave of surprised and bewildered voices sounded out, and it was the nearby Shiryu, Ning Meng, and the others, as well as the Martial Tao courtyard disciples that had awoken from their blank state of mind. Everyone was a little confused. Obviously, they didn't notice what happened just now. This must be the trick of the dean. Haha, look, this guy is still ranked 4th on the Spirit Sea Golden List. Someone laughed and found that the golden light representing Lin Sun's result on the Spirit Sea Golden List was still at the 4th place. Sure enough, we won the bet. Lin Sun, how can you be so arrogant? I told you earlier that you couldn't make it, but you still talked nonsense about being ranked 1st on the Spirit Sea Golden List. Now what do you have to say? You lost. Quickly take out your points. The disciples of martial arts courtyard shouted excitedly. They were very happy to see Lin Sun lose the bet and make a fool of himself in public. Shiryu, Ning Meng, and the others' faces were a little ugly. They couldn't figure out why the vision was so grand and why Lin Sun's ranking remained at the same level. It was simply inexplicable. Could it be that something happened? You guys, what's there to be proud of? Didn't you see that Lin Sun's ranking has already reached the 4th place? Is such a result something you can mock? Ning Meng shouted loudly. Indeed, to be ranked fourth on the Spirit Sea Golden List, one could be said to be one of the top existences in martial arts courtyard. Not everyone could have such a result. Humph, what a joke. Lin Sun isn't ranked first. He has already lost. This is the truth. Are we wrong? Someone snorted coldly. Cut the crap. You were so arrogant just now, but now you can't afford to lose? Shame. The others also shouted loudly. Ning Meng, Sure Yu, and the others were angry, but they couldn't refute it. Indeed, according to the agreement between Lin Sun and them, he had already lost. But at this moment Lin Sun turned his head and asked with a smile, Don't worry, it's not over yet. I remember there are still many friends who haven't joined the bet, right? Now that you think I will lose, why don't you join in? Don't worry, if I really lose, I promise I won't go back on my word. Ning Meng, Sure Yu, and the others' eyes lit up. They realized that Lin Sun might still have a backup plan. This was something they were looking forward to. The disciples of martial arts courtyard were also stunned. They didn't expect that Lin Sun would still be so fearless at this time. This surprised them, but when they saw the ranking on the stone tablet didn't change, they were relieved. You're deliberately mystifying. I'll bet with you. Immediately, a young man stood out and took out his identity nameplate with a sneer. Me too. Some other students also joined in the bet. It was no wonder that they were so confident. After so long, Lin Sun's ranking hadn't changed. It would be difficult for him to make a comeback. Seeing this, Lin Sun's smile became more and more brilliant. Without another word, he pressed his right hand on the stone tablet again. Don't you want to give up? Do you want to try again? Ridiculous. A student roared with laughter. But before his voice died away, he saw the golden light that represented Lin Sun's result flashed lightly, and then he reached the top in one leap. The speed was so fast that it was like a flash of golden light. Zhao Jingwen, who was originally in the first place, fell to the second place. Zui Yujing, who was originally in the second place, fell to the third place. The students of martial arts courtyard were dumbfounded. They were all eager to fight and thinking about how to divide the spoils of winning from Lin Sun. Who would have thought that the ranking would change dramatically with a flash in front of them? Some students even couldn't believe it and couldn't help rubbing their eyes. But the result was cruel. The first place was indeed occupied by Lin Sun's result. Chapter 494. Sure Yu and Ning Meng also gasped. Lin Sun was too ruthless. Had he been holding back his strength just now and waited for all the fish to take the bait before he started to exert his strength? How insidious! They looked at Lin Sun with a strange look in their eyes. In order to get points, Lin Sun was really black-hearted. However, they had wronged Lin Sun. He really didn't dig a pit this time. He just took advantage of the situation. What was even weirder was that those students of martial arts courtyard foolishly jumped in. Who could be blamed for that? It's impossible. Someone shouted angrily. What? Can't afford to lose? Lin Sun didn't bother to talk nonsense, and began to collect the identity nameplate. If you dare to run, don't blame me for getting angry. A student in the distance, who intended to slip away, was shocked by Lin Sun's words. His face suddenly darkened and he reluctantly handed over his identity nameplate. You cheated. Someone was still unwilling to give up and screamed. Those points were accumulated with painstaking effort. Now they had to give them away. How could they be reconciled? Cut the crap. Let me see if you have the guts. Lin Sun snatched the identity nameplate, which made the latter tremble with anger. He wanted to fight back, but he held back in the end. Even the top figures like Lan Yu and Jin Zhulu were no match for Lin Sun. How could he dare to challenge Lin Sun? In the end, Lin Sun got more than 10 identity nameplate. Adding up all the identity nameplates he won from Lan Yu and Jin Zhulu, he had nearly 4,000 points. Lin Sun was a little surprised by the abundant harvest. According to his calculation, now that he was ranked first on Spiritual Sea Golden List, He could also get 2,000 points as a reward. In total, he had more than 6,000 points, which was more than enough to take the stairway assessment. Thanks a lot, everyone. In the end, Lin Sun waved his hand with a smile and left Spiritual Sea Peak with Shi Yu and Ning Meng. Those students of martial arts courtyard were so angry that they almost vomited blood. They wanted to cry but had no tears. Whoosh! Not long after, a man in white came to Spiritual Sea Peak. He was tall and slender, like an exiled immortal, and his eyes were as bright as stars. Gu Yunting. He stared fixedly at the name that was ranked first on the Spirit Sea Gold rankings, and he couldn't help but be stunned. He seemed to be slightly puzzled. The phenomenon of the heavens and the earth from before was so grand and profound, yet why wasn't this person able to leave his name on the Spirit Sea Immortal rankings? After a moment of silence, Gu Yunting turned around and left swiftly. Not long after, many people arrived at the Spirit Sea Peak. There were teachers of Green Deer School and many students. When they saw the name of the first place on the Spirit Sea Gold list, they couldn't help but be shocked. Lin Sun. It was actually him. Today, Green Deer Academy was destined to not be peaceful. After disappearing for 2 months, Lin Sun had returned in a domineering manner and defeated Shi Yunping, Shui Yun, Jin Zhulu, Lan Yu, and the others in the training field, causing a sensation among the teachers and students of the Martial Dao Courtyard. His unbridled attitude, his insidious fighting methods of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, made people gnash their teeth in hatred, but at the same time, they were secretly shocked and fearful. This fellow is black-hearted and sinister, purposely pretending to be a pig to trick others. He's simply shameless. Awesome. Even Lan Yu took the initiative to admit defeat. Lin Sun has already surpassed most of the top talents in terms of martial cultivation. This was everyone's evaluation of Lin Sun. Those who hated him scolded him for being insidious, too black-hearted, and not having the demeanor of a top talent at all. And those who admired him were generous in their praise and extremely revered his strength. But this was not the end. When everyone was speculating how powerful Lin Sun's fighting capacity was, an explosive news once again swept across Green Deer School. Lin Sun had climbed to the top of the Spirit Sea Gold list in one fell swoop, suppressing all the top talents. This was too terrifying. The Spirit Sea Gold rankings represented a supreme honor, and the names that were able to be ranked on it represented the 100 most outstanding geniuses in the Martial Dao Courtyard. But now Lin Sun, a young spiritual tattooist of the Spiritual Tattoo Courtyard, had appeared in a domineering manner and set foot on the first place of the Spirit Sea Gold list. How could people not be shocked? Who could imagine that Lin Sun's martial cultivation had already stood at the peak of the Spirit Sea realm? Damn it! Lin Sun is not even a student of the Martial Dao Courtyard, but now he ranks first on the Spirit Sea Gold list. Isn't he bullying our Martial Dao Courtyard? The students of the Martial Dao Courtyard couldn't sit still, and they were extremely sad and indignant. Lin Sun is extraordinary. Since ancient times, who in the other courtyards dared to be like Lin Sun and directly occupy the first place of the Spirit Sea Gold list after violently beating up the top talents of the Martial Dao Courtyard? How can the students of the Martial Dao Courtyard endure this? Those talents of the Martial Dao Courtyard are all extremely arrogant and haughty. After this lesson, perhaps they can turn over a new leaf. In the other courtyards, some students were excited. They thought Lin Sun was simply an incomparably ferocious person. Only when the news that Gu Yunting had set foot on the Spirit Sea General list came out did the students of the Martial Dao Courtyard become excited. After 5 years of closed-door cultivation, senior brother Gu Yunting has come out and surpassed the Spirit Sea Gold list and entered the Spirit Sea General list. He's on par with the most outstanding talents in the past thousands of years. This is simply a miracle. No matter how arrogant Lin Sun is, he can only be the first on the Spirit Sea Gold list. Compared to senior brother Gu Yunting, He's like a pearl that's as small as a grain of rice, and he's bound to be unable to compete with the sun and moon. A single Gu Yunting had resolved the aggrieved feelings of all the students of the Martial Dao courtyard, and it caused them to be overjoyed and excited. No wonder the phenomenon of the heavens and the earth descended today. So it turns out that Gu Yunting has ascended into the Spirit Sea General List. Gu Yunting with the golden body of Dao Flame. He has already surpassed the current geniuses, and he's on par with the most dazzling geniuses that have appeared in the past thousands of years. Even the instructors and students of the other courtyards of Azure Deer Academy couldn't help but exclaim with admiration for Gu Yunting when they found out about this. This person was too heaven-defying. He was like a peerless genius that caused others to be unable to envy him because he was too extraordinary. Who do all of you think is stronger between Lin Sun and Gu Yunting? Of course it's Gu Yunting. Lin Sun is only the first on the Spirit Sea Gold list, whereas Gu Yunting has already surpassed and stepped foot on the Spirit Sea General list. You can't say it like that. I remember that Lin Sun is only 16 this year, whereas Gu Yunting is already over 20 years old. There's quite a big difference between the two. If Lin Sun is given a few more years, he'll absolutely be able to surpass Gu Yunting. What a joke! Young age only represents potential. In the current world, competition is a competition of cultivation. Lin Sun is inferior in the end, and it's bound to be difficult for him to catch up to Gu Yunting. In Azure Deer Academy, many people were comparing Lin Sun and Gu Yunting, and it even caused an intense discussion to arise. But no matter what, Lin Sun and Gu Yunting had become the two people that received the most attention in Azure Deer Academy today. At the same time, another piece of news spread out in Forbidden City. Lin Sun, who had vanished for 2 months, walked out from his closed-door cultivation, and on that very day, he started a massacre and annihilated all the disciples of the Lin clan's branch family, and he even domineeringly captured the two geniuses of the younger generation, Zhuoyang and Qin Xing. Instantly, Forbidden City fell into an uproar. Lin Sun was familiar to everyone. He'd once done many great things that caused a great commotion, and his name shook Forbidden City. But when everyone thought that he was doomed to suffer a lot of suppression and disasters because he offended the royal family of the empire, he made a strong attack. On the first day he came out, he set off a bloody scene and killed those who dared to provoke and fight against Heart-Cleansing Peak in an absolute manner. Lin Sun is really cruel and merciless. Isn't he afraid of death? Even Zhuoyang and Qin Xing were captured by him. Isn't he worried about the revenge from the Zhuo and Qin families? I knew Lin Sun wouldn't swallow it. He even dared to force Marquis Lingtian to kneel down and apologize in front of all the bigwigs in the imperial palace. Is there anything in the world that he doesn't dare to do? In the Forbidden City there were discussions everywhere. After 2 months, Lin Sun returned to people's sight in a bloody and powerful manner, which surprised everyone. No one expected that he dared to do this. This was tantamount to completely offending the 3 collateral forces of Lin clan and completely offending the Zhuo and Qin families. Heart-Cleansing Peak is in a precarious situation now, but Lin Sun still doesn't know how to restrain himself. He is playing with fire. Even a rabbit will bite when it's cornered. I'm afraid that Lin Sun has been driven to the end of his rope. He has to take action. Alas, his opponents are not only the Zhuo and Qin families, but also the royal family of the empire. I think it won't be long before Lin Sun is doomed to suffer and Heart-Cleansing Peak is doomed to be destroyed. Indeed, no matter how powerful he is just a young man after all. He doesn't know how terrible the forces of those superior families are. It's easier to kill him than to pinch an ant. The Forbidden City was the capital of the empire. Lin Sun attracted the attention and discussion of the whole city on the day he came out. It could be seen that Lin Sun's fame had accumulated to a level that no one could ignore, whether it was good or bad. On the same day, the news that Lin Sun entered Green Deer School, beat a group of talents and ranked first in Sea Spirit Gold list also spread to the Forbidden City. At the same time, the news that Lin Sun captured Zhuiyang and Qin Xing and killed the collateral clansmen of Lin Clan also spread to Green Deer School. Without exception, it caused an uproar again. All kinds of uproars and discussions made Lin Sun the most eye-catching person in the Forbidden City today. This kind of treatment was rare in the world and in the past years. After all, apart from his identity and strength, Lin Sun was only a 16-year-old boy now, but he could stir up a storm in the whole city. On this point alone, almost no one among his peers could compare with him. Lin Sun didn't know about this. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care much. He just wanted to make a scene. No matter if it was a bad reputation or a good one, as long as it was big enough. Spiritual Affairs Hall. Lin Sun came with a pile of identity nameplate. He wanted to exchange them for points and then began to prepare for the stairway assessment. Chapter 495. When he walked out of the Spiritual Affairs Hall, Lin Sun felt a little pain in his heart. He finally understood that choosing the second method required him to pay the price of 1,000 points. No wonder so few people would choose to do it alone. 1,000 points was an astronomical figure that would make most students stop in their track. Fortunately, after deducting 1,000 points, Lin Sun had more than 5,000 points on his nameplate, which was enough for him to pass the stairway assessment. It was getting late. Lin Sun returned to his residence and decided to go to the Stairway Mountain tomorrow. The so-called Stairway Mountain was a forbidden place in Green Deer School. Only students with 5,000 points were qualified to set foot on it. It was said that the Stairway Mountain contained the trace of the Great Way, which was mysterious and unpredictable. Whoever could climb to the top of the stairway would reach the sky in one step and master the power of the Great Way. The word sky here also referred to the Tao Insight Realm, because only the strongmen of Tao Insight Realm could master the power of the Great Way. This was common knowledge. Late at night, Lin Sun sat cross-legged in his room, meditating quietly. Today, his cultivation had reached the unprecedented extreme of Sea Spirit Realm, which was perfect and flawless. Because of the rebirth of the spiritual veins, his originally incomparably strong cultivation became more and more tyrannical, as immeasurable as the abyss. If it was seen by other practitioners, they would be stunned because there was almost no one in Sea Spirit Realm who had such a strong foundation like Lin Sun. In terms of soul cultivation, Lin Sun had also reached the consummation of star circulation. In his sea of consciousness, the stars shone brightly, and the dreamy starlight illuminated his soul. The next level was moon shift, which belonged to a more profound level of soul cultivation. This level was based on refining the moon of soul. When the wonderful image of the full moon in the sky was condensed, it could be regarded as consummation. Lin Sun planned to practice moon shift after breaking through the Tao Insight Realm. Because in Sea Spirit Realm, his soul power had reached the limit, and it was difficult for him to transform again due to the influence of his body and cultivation. What really surprised Lin Sun was the change of his physique. After experiencing the reincarnation cycle of destruction and rebirth in the ancient Tao Spirit Tablet, his physique had been transformed and sublimated again and again. In the process, the Amrita Saint Pearl, a sacred tool, was also completely refined and integrated with his physical strength. Now Lin Sun suspected that he could kill a Sea Spirit Realm practitioner with one punch only with his physical strength. My cultivation, soul, and physique have all reached the perfection realm. As the saying goes, the three realms give birth to all things. When I break through to the Tao Insight Realm, I'll be able to obtain achievements that far surpass other practitioners. Lin Sun was enlightened. The Heavenly Insight Realm was a realm that was completely different from the Spirit Sea Realm. Only by attaining this realm would one be addressed as a great cultivator. Because only those at the Heavenly Insight Realm were able to comprehend and grasp the energy of grand Tao concepts, control wind, lightning, earth, and fire, and control the world. With a raise of their hand, they were able to create storms, incinerate mountains, and boil oceans. There were many kinds of descriptions of Tao insight. Some people said that when one reached this realm, he could have insight into the Tao and reason of heaven and earth, so it was called Tao insight. Some people said that Tao insight was a manifestation of the transformation of cultivation. It was like opening up a world in one's body, building the root of grand Tao, and having the qualification to seek longevity. But in any case, Tao insight realm was indeed a mysterious realm. Since ancient times, only 1 in 10,000 people could set foot in this realm. It was too difficult, because Tao insight realm was about comprehending the grand Tao of heaven and earth. Without talent and opportunity, it was destined to be difficult to grasp in a lifetime. For example, in the big forces in the Forbidden City today, the strongman of Tao insight realm was absolutely an indispensable heavyweight, which was enough to deter one side. On heart-cleansing peak, Zhu Laosan and Lin Zhong were at this level. Without them, heart-cleansing peak would be in a more dangerous situation. From this, it could be seen how powerful the deterrent of Tao insight realm was. Today, Lin Sun was only one step away from this realm, but this step was more difficult than climbing the sky. It could not be broken through by closing the door, but it needed opportunity, tempering and seeking calmly. As far as Lin Sun knew, there were many amazing people in the world today who failed to break through and set foot in Tao insight realm in their whole life. It was not because their foundation was not strong enough, but because they lacked a chance and opportunity to break through. The same was true for Lin Sun now. He was also waiting for an opportunity to break through. The next morning. Ladder Mountain. This place was located in the depths of Green Deer School. It was a forbidden area. Almost no figure could be seen in ordinary days. Amidst the rising morning mist, a tall and handsome figure could be vaguely seen walking over. He wore a moon-white robe, and his long black hair was casually tied behind his head, revealing a handsome and warm face. His black eyes were deep and clear, and his entire person had an otherworldly aura. It was Lin Sun. It was quiet all around. The mountains were covered in the morning mist. In the distance, it was Ladder Mountain, where the celestial ladder test was about to start. Young man, this is a forbidden area. Don't come any closer. There was a thatched cottage in the distance. In front of the cottage, an old man with unkempt hair and beard was cooking. The stove was burning fiercely, and the beast meat was being cooked in the iron pot. The aroma filled the air and made people want to eat. When he noticed Lin Sun's arrival, the old man said quickly without raising his head. He stared at the beast meat in the iron pot and smacked his lips, as if he was already hungry. "Senior, I'm here to climb the ladder to heaven," Lin Sun said casually. He was looking at the old man. He was dirty and looked very sloppy. There was no strong aura around him, so he did not look like a reclusive master. However, Lin Sun did not dare to underestimate him. Being able to guard the Ladder Mountain, this sloppy old man must have an extraordinary background. Oh, in the past hundreds of years, many students have come to climb the ladder to heaven, but none of them succeeded. Young man, I advise you to leave. Don't waste your points. Speaking of this, the old man suddenly laughed. In the past, 5,000 points could be exchanged for a piece of the heart of a heaven-rank monster. Unfortunately, it's hard to find such a monster now. Lin Sun was stunned. A heaven-rank monster? That was a terrifying existence comparable to the Tao Insight realm or even the reincarnation developing realm. Had this old man eaten the heart of a heaven-rank monster before? Lin Sun immediately stopped thinking and said seriously, "Senior, I must climb the ladder to heaven this time." The old man seemed to be a little impatient. He waved his hand and said, "You really won't give up until you hit the wall. Fine, I won't stop you. Give me your identity nameplate." Lin Sun handed over his identity nameplate and continued to walk away. The complete sea spirit realm? Hey, what a pity! If I don't have the qualification of the Supreme Master in this realm, I'm doomed to return in failure. The old man glanced at Lin Sun's back and shook his head disapprovingly. He took out a bowl and chopsticks, scooped out the beast meat in the iron pot, and began to eat heartily. Huh? Why is there another one? Suddenly, the old man was stunned. He frowned and looked into the distant morning mist. He saw a man in snow-white clothes, who was as transcendent as a banished immortal, floating towards him. Gu Yunting, are you also here to climb the ladder to heaven? The old man chewed the beast meat and asked vaguely. He was satisfied with the food. Gu Yunting nodded and took out his identity nameplate. Then he continued to move forward without saying a word. What's wrong with you today? The old man frowned and then shook his head. He continued to eat the meat, as if the meat in the bowl was more important than the sky falling down. The ladder to heaven was like a giant halberd, piercing into the sky. The rocks were like iron, and there was not even a blade of grass growing. It gave people an unshakable momentum. Standing under it, one could clearly see that a stone path went straight up to the top of the mountain. It was steep and dangerous, just like a straight ladder. This was the ladder to heaven. It was said that every step of the stone ladder was branded with the traces of the Great Way. It was full of unpredictable power. Walking on it was more terrible than going up a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. Since ancient times, very few people could set foot on the top of the ladder to heaven because it was too difficult. Even the practitioners of sea spirit realm struggled on it. However, if one could really reach the top of the ladder to heaven, he could get great benefits, which could be called a great opportunity. Lin Sun took a deep breath and stepped on it without hesitation. Before he came here, he had learned that every step on the ladder to heaven was dangerous. One careless step could lead to ruthless suppression and elimination. But in order to get the horn of one-legged ox, Lin Sun had to pass this test. When he stepped on the first stone step, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. As if the stars had moved, a raging sea of fire emerged. In the sea of fire, fierce birds were flying in the fire, emitting a terrible momentum that could incinerate everything. The brand of fire. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and judged that it was derived from the trace of the essence of fire on the ladder to heaven. Although it was not real, its power was extremely terrible. Swish! Without giving Lin Sun more time to think, a ferocious bird spread its wings, wrapped in thousands of layers of fire waves, whistling over. The blazing fire waves melted the void, full of destructive power. The test began. Lin Sun did not retreat but moved forward. He ran his cultivation all over his body. His whole body was like a bright cyan sun, rushing to the sky and punching out. Boom! The fist force was like a waterfall. In an instant, the fierce bird was smashed into pieces, turned into a rain of light and disappeared. But in just a moment, fierce birds rushed out of the sea of fire one after another. They were all bathed in the monstrous fire, making harsh cries and overwhelming attacks on Lin Sun. Come on! Lin Sun's black hair was flying. He ran the 9 strikes for shaking heaven and launched a fierce fight above the sea of fire. Flames were steaming and fierce birds were flying. It was like a fiery purgatory. The power of incineration filled the universe. The scene was extremely horrible. At the same time, at the foot of the ladder to heaven, Gu Yunting in white arrived. When he saw Lin Sun standing on the first stone step in the distance, he could not help but frown slightly. Immediately, he walked over and began to climb the ladder from Lin Sun's side.